It doesn't play. I can't hear it, Tarke. It works. You
Okay,
figured it out.
okay.
Just like put it behind the overlay now, and we're good.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Despite your best efforts.
Despite my best efforts. Okay, in that case, we're just gonna go straight into it. Wait, why is it gone black?
You didn't hit loop.
No, it's fine. It's Chris back. Hey guys, Tarke here, and we are doing a totally not scuffed podcast. Ritual, by the way, we haven't had half an hour of preamble. Raiz, what have you been up to?
Wow. Ritual started. That was great. I played a War Chief Totem guy, a champion. Totem nodes were bugged, so that sucked.
What was the bug?
They fixed it now, though. Increased totem damage didn't work. So, yeah.
Pretty big bug.
I mean, despite everything, the build was pretty cool, though. Like, the champion, you'd, like, taunt with the totems, and then you take less damage, and they gave it buffs. So, basically, you always have, like, you're taunting for 10%, and totems are taunting for 20% less damage taken, and then another 10% because they're taunting, and then you've got permanent fortify. It's a whole lot of mitigation. And it still dealt really good damage. I've never played a War Chief Totem build, and it was pretty nice. And then I switched to a Hierophant with Krima. I switched to a Necro, but then somebody in chat was like, yo, dude, have you thought about trying Hierophant for Krima now? And I went, are you stupid? And then I just thought about it for 2 hours and eventually switched. Turns out Hierophant is bugged too, and that hasn't been fixed as of now. Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge does not get overwritten by a higher level one. So since every time you hit with a Hierophant, you gain
level 1,
Arcane
right?
Surge. Anytime there's a window of like your Arcane Surge going down, your level 1 is up for 4 seconds or whatever it is. So like half the time your high level Arcane Surge doesn't work, and that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
And then I rolled a Penance Brand guy, couldn't get any gear, or I had gear but died to a disconnect. Then I rolled it again because it was a lot of fun. Couldn't get any gear and then died again. And I guess next time I'm playing Earthquake because I'm like that. It's been a great league so far.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Also, I was participating in the Maven event. I run 250 Haywork Hamlets or whatever that map is, and I didn't drop a single invitation. So that was interesting too. I wonder what they're gonna come up with. To tell us that everything works correctly, because I don't know.
What level did you get Uberlab again?
94.5. It's been a rough league, but I did get 2 6-links. That was really cool. You know, that was really cool.
Yeah.
I died with them, but.
What about your Nugiyen? How did your Raiz go? Race.
My race?
Yeah, your race.
Well, I actually had a really good start. I decided that I was going with a real build this time and not something I was hoping would work. Every time I go with Ignite, basically, my life just crumbles. Because it's just awful to start with every time. And I did it on EA, and then I did it on Hexblast, and just So I decided, hey, we're gonna go DD. So I went DD. But I didn't go Necro DD. I went with Inquisitor. And it was like, but Inquisitor, is that even good? Yeah, it's really good. And so I started a little slow because I'm rusty, but I made it to like rank 6 and then died because I looked away from the screen right as I went into EK dudes. So that was unlucky. Rerolled. Then I got booty blasted by... I was like catching up. I was thinking, maybe I can like catch a top 5 finish here. I think I could have. With, the stars aligning and a little bit of luck. Then I ran into Serious Empowered Monsters. And they hit me for 13,000 in a no damage mods T14 map. Hello. So I died to that. Reroll again. Stormbrand, I think. Was it? I think it rerolled Stormbrand this time. I was like, let's just try something new because it's like now I'm so far behind. I don't really care too much. That went okay, but you really need the jewels for that. The actual health. Yeah. Because you kind of have to clear with Penance Brand, and then you just swap Stormbrand for single target. I think it's the better idea. Or you need like Impulsor or Explodey Chest to have AoE on Stormbrand. Because Stormbrand is like, you have to click so much to actually clear because it doesn't step very far. And even with Chain, there's just too many monsters for it to like really pop. I tried like Herald of Ice. It was like coming from DD to that and having to like play Stormbrand non-stop. It was just so spammy. So I was like, no explosions and no good way to do penance. I was like, yeah, rerolled again, back into DD. And
Back on
then
Inquis, or
yes, everything Inquisitor. Go back into DD. Went great. Put on some of my good gear I had stored from before. Finally made a chest. So I've been trying to make a chest. This was my second chest I finally made, like with Influence and Alva. Quinn hosts me. I'm like trying to like explain a few things. Get a little. Don't see I put a mod on the map, and I might have killed myself to reflect.
Oh.
So I killed myself. Rerolled again. Get another DDer up to 95. Put on really nice gear again. Finally roll another Alva chest. I hit the Crusader one on there again. Really nice. Finally moved all the mods and was just trying to get the thing rolling. Ran into Stormbears and died.
Nice.
And now I'm like 91 on another DD Inquisitor. And I have really nice gear again.
It must be a fun build.
It's a really good build. I like it a lot.
Well, at least we know Inquis is good.
Oh, it's very good. Very good ascendancy.
It's so weird for me because like it feels like it really needs the Timeless Jewel and everything because you can't really like mitigate a whole lot, so you just need EHP. So like Gravicious Craft, Timeless Jewel, Vigil. The new farmable Vigil Jewel is so nice. Like I didn't have any of those things, and it didn't feel very good, especially compared to my Hierophant who has like 5,000 regen, which is really sick because I've got really good gear on that guy.
I mean, isn't that kind of the same deal with like agnostic builds though? It's like I have all this EHP, but like no real mitigation until you get like your end game gear set up.
I mean, Necromancer has mitigation. Hierophant has now the endurance charges, and you get a lot of HP. And I've got like 3,000 mana regen now with the new Arcane Surge without like a Cloak of Defiance. Hierophant's got a much bigger boost than people give it credit for. Like the sorry.
Hire is quite good, just agreeing with you.
Yeah, that's fair.
I agree. Didn't Ziggy put it in F tier? I heard about a Ziggy list and Hierophant.
What?
I think it was
That was Ziz.
Was it Ziz?
Yeah.
Oh no!
And I believe that was in
He's
reference
wrong.
to totems more
Oh,
than
everyone gets them named
like the
confused.
Hierophants that Raiz is talking about and that I think are rather good are not really the totem builds so much. I think it's more the Archmage stuff, taking the mana nodes.
To be honest, I still don't see how people like read over Hierophant as bad as they did. They were like, "Oh no, it doesn't have inbuilt multi." Like, honestly, who cares? It's really not that big of a deal.
A lot of totem plays.
Well, no, but it's like it's still pretty much like the best de facto totem build. Like, if you want to do that build, it's still pretty much the best. And it's like it's like when people cried that Trickster was dead because it lost its spell dodge, and it's like, just play it. Like, what?
I agree with you on the Trickster front. I think Trickster's alright.
I think Hierophant is more than fine. Like, I don't know.
Well, it's not that it's not fine. It's just that it was taken away for like seemingly no reason. It seems like almost they made a decision due to the fact that in the future they want to do something with it, with like multiple totems. Maybe they want to add a mod or something like that. Maybe Pursuit of Faith was causing problems with people like having a lot of global damage and having explosions or something. But from like a this is too strong, let's balance it point of view, like it just didn't make sense. So there must be something more to it, I would imagine. But the ascendancy's fine.
I mean, I was talking specifically about the totem thing. It purely seemed to me a case of we have all these different ascendancies with totem stuff on it, but everyone just plays Hierophant because it drops 2 by default. So we'll remove that. So if you want 2 by default, you have to use multi-totem like every other ascendancy. So now that
you actually play it by default though? Like, I don't know. Like, I haven't followed like totem metas.
Well, you used to take the node, so you drop 2 at once because you.
Don't people also play? People play like Inquisitor with totems, and they play like War Chief.
Champ totems has been a thing for a little while.
Yeah, Champ has been a thing, but like if you actually look at like PvE Ninja and like people playing totems, it's like 90. It's like how you can play like non-trap Sab and it's decent, but it's like 95% of all totem builds would be Hierophant.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Well, casters, you don't really have a choice. I mean, there was like a EA totem build that was apparently pretty strong with Hierophant for like a while now, ever since they changed the EA again. But yeah, I don't know. Like you still have to pick Hierophant. It just feels worse now. I just don't get it, and it's not like it was strong either. I am all for the ascendancy changes that they did. I really like them a lot. I defended a lot of them. I think they make a lot of sense. But then this one in particular is like the one exception where it's just like it must have been going for something more than this. I don't get it.
It's a little bit weird. I agree.
And then, what about you, Octavian? How's your league start been treating you?
I started in hardcore trade this time around. I was just getting a little bit. I don't know. I like both trade and solo self-found quite a bit, and I've been participating in more events than usual recently, and the majority of the events that happen are solo self-found ones. So I was getting a little tired of it, so I swapped back to trade for this league. I started with a champion Toxic Rain Ballista build that's sort of like a hybrid Ballista / non. So I have 2 6-link Toxic Rains, and one is Ballista and one isn't, is the simple way to phrase it. So I have like 400,000 or 500,000 DPS in the self-attack, and that's basically purely for clearing, and that speeds up the playstyle quite a lot. And then the totems can push a few million DPS when they're all down, and that's what I use for bossing or doing rituals or anything. And it's a really enjoyable playstyle. I've only played that build, but I have had to reroll it a couple times. I died to the game crashing at level 92 on like, I don't know, day 2 or 3, I lose track. Early on in the league, died to a game crash. And then I got overconfident against the Bramble Valley boss, who is all of the Harvest T4 seeds at the same time. And that is very, very scary.
Really?
Yeah. So I beat the boss, and then it was really difficult. I got chunked to half a couple times during the fight because my build was still pretty scuffed because it was the reroll, and I got there. I was like rushing, and I got there in a day after the reroll, and I just wasn't ready to be doing that tier of map anyways. And I got chunked to half a few times in the fight, and then there's a ritual altar next to the boss, and I'm like, let me just click that again. Let me just fight him again. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Turns out the ritual altar gave them charges, and it wasn't fine. But
I was doing that yesterday, and the map had crit and everything, and I was like, "Ooh, this might be scary." But they didn't do anything to my Hierophant, just because like the fortify is the mitigation that are really only ever needed, and now you can get it permanently with the vigil being like farmable. But then they just didn't do a whole lot. But I did post out on the ritual. I was like, maybe next time.
No, I should have pushed out on the ritual. But yeah, the champ stuff that you described earlier is the main reason for going Toxic Rain Ballistas champs. I've gotten a lot of people who've come into the chat and have asked me, "Oh, you're playing Toxic Rain? Are you Trickster or Pathfinder?" And they give me weird messages when I tell them that I am neither of those things.
People love Pathfinder. I don't get it.
Oh no, Pathfinder is really good for Toxic Rain.
Yeah, actually, if I were to play the build in softcore, I think I would just change it into a Pathfinder. But the sheer amount of mitigation you get out of the taunt nodes with totems is just too much to pass up.
Like I'm currently playing a Toxic Rain Deadeye, but just to briefly explain it, Raiz, the 30% AoE is big for getting overlapping pods, 15% more damage, ailment immune, flask sustain for bosses, attack speed, movement speed, and then all the flask effect and everything. So you have hardened scars, 100% uptime, and then cluster jewel stuff. Like it's really good. But the thing which
even Raiders better.
I think Raiders. I think Raiders.
Okay, I have to put my foot down and no, not what.
Pathfinder is really good.
I played a lot of Toxic Rain on Pathfinder, and it is one of the best tendencies for it. Wait,
but are we talking totems or are we?
No,
we're talking
if we're talking self-casting, what's better about it than like a Trickster? I guess it's like faster.
Okay, so Trickster has a few things going well for it. Because I don't know if you noticed, I've played quite a lot of like dot bow builds. It's kind of my thing.
Me too.
So I think Trickster has the smoothest start, probably up until like if you're like, I'm just gonna play this build to like mid-90s with a +3 bow and not crazy push the gear, I would say Trickster's good. But if you're going full cluster jewel and you're going like full min-max, I think Pathfinder just outscaled it, because you get to like with Trickster, it's like you get the really nice early sustain for mapping, which is cool. You get a chunk of early damage, you get a little bit of skill effect duration. You have a worse skill tree because you have to root through Shadow Start, and Shadow Start just isn't that great. It's just 5 points of damage. And if you go with the Cluster Jewel stuff, you get all the insane 100% uptime of the Floss, you get the Hardened Scars. It's just like, it just doesn't compete, like, once you get to the gear thresholds. And if you actually just want to push damage, the highest damage you can get is on a Cultist, but no one really plays a Cultist course to carry anymore. But like, if you're just if the only thing you care about is damage, like a Cultist has the most because it has the easy application of Wither, which is also really important for stuff like Maven now and like all those Echoes fights, and it has all the Chaos multi and the minus Chaos res, and then no regen, which is big as well.
AoE is one of the most important stats for Toxic Rain, basically.
Yeah,
As well.
I've had to...
And Pathfinder has AoE and permanent uptime on Dying Sun.
Yeah.
With buff effect for Dying Sun. So you basically just have enough AoE by default.
Yeah.
I've had to scrounge quite a bit to get the AoE on Champion. The Sand Stance nodes below Duelist give 25%, so I had to mess around with a Flesh and Stone reduced reserved enchant and like a level 3 Enlightened to fit it in, so I could get 25% AoE there.
Are you using a Thread of Hope? Because you can hit those nodes, the charge generation nodes. Like, the Thread of Hope there is like awesome.
Thread, I think, drops the small node that leads into it, which gives 10% of the AoE. So it's a 3-pointer, and it's 10%, and then 15% on the big node.
That's
and
also...
I'm literally at the exact amount of AoE I need to get the radius for the 5 pods overlapping.
And that's another thing as well, like, because you're a duelist, that thread isn't as great because you want to root through the start of duelist, whereas as a ranger it's awesome because you just get like Golem's Blood, and then you get to grab the life at duelist, and then grab all the proj and everything. But just to relate to that quickly, so yeah, I'm playing a Deadeye Toxic Rain build at the moment, and I uploaded a YouTube video, and this was literally the opener to my YouTube video. Hey guys, not saying this is optimal, better than Pathfinder or Raider, but I wanted to try out the new Deadeye, and it's a lot of fun. First comment, I don't see how this is better than Raider. And it's like, I literally opened the video with, I wanted to try the new thing, I'm not saying it's better. And it's like, well, actually, Tarke, if you were doing this on a Pathfinder with a Carcass Jack and a Dying Sun, you'd hit the... And it's like... But, yeah, the new Deadeye's fun. Go Quill Rain. With just a Quill Rain and the Mirage Archer stuff, you can do tier 16 maps, no problem, with trash gear. It's cool. I probably will have to swap it into Pathfinder for, like, endgame bossing, though. But, you've been playing some nice little Deadeye as well, haven't you, Mr. Ziggy?
I have. Amy and I are co-oping the league start, as we've done for the past few leagues, and we're playing Trade Softcore Ritual. And I'm doing a Deadeye Lightning Arrow character for a little bit of a nostalgia fix. Plus, playing around with the, all the new chain stuff and everything is quite fun. I did test the Mirage Archer stuff as well, and have been abusing as much as possible Hydrosphere interactions, since that skill is extremely busted. And we made a build for Amy that's we're calling a Battle Slinger, which is like a Spell Slinger hybrid Inquisitor, using the new, so you Spell Slinger Frostbolt and then self-cast Ice Nova for the 75% AoE and more cast speed. That turned out really good. She's popping off with that one. Plus the Inquisitor stuff seems so good now. I'm jealous. The new regen is like, I was pretty hesitant on that when I first saw that change, because I was like, oh man, I really like that flat 200 ES that you don't have to do anything for. Really nice for EB, but then Amy's got like 1,000 energy shield regen on top of 1,000 life regen with like no, barely an investment. It's running like a low level vitality. It's very good. That is very good. And so is the battle mage and the fanaticism charges. The only thing about the fanaticism side of things is that it doesn't really make sense in a lot of setups for you to alternate between attacking and casting. And yeah, you can shield charge to do it a bit, but sometimes you're going to be sitting there slamming off a few shield charges to activate, and it's maybe a bit awkward. But it makes a lot of sense in a spell slinger setup like that, though, where you also want to cast something as well. So I don't know how many setups there is that really take full advantage of that, but that one certainly feels like a really good one, and it seems quite clever. But yeah, no, the new Deadeye I like. Deadeye lost a lot, in my opinion, but and certainly a lot of people that played Deadeye for certain reasons now don't want to play Deadeye and have moved on to other builds. But What the new Deadeye does do is pretty nice though. I'm really enjoying the projectile chaining. It works really well in Ritual with the like walls and the arenas and stuff. So you chain your projectiles like crazy. I was really meh on the the mark node initially.
Oh, that's so good. That
Oh
one.
no, that's the good.
That's the good
Yeah,
one.
yeah. And when I first saw it, I was pretty meh on it because I'm like, oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, compared to a lot of the other options. But I ended up swapping out of Occupying Force, the Mirage Archer node, because although it's all right, I think it gets outclassed by Focal Point, the mark node, once you get some way of automating your marks. So I'm using Asim's Chant to auto position Hydrosphere, and I also put whatever it is, Sniper's Mark in there. And yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Damage mitigation, a lot of increased damage taken, and a bunch of projectile spam for when that's relevant. It's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. But you guys all had such sad stories.
What? No, it's fine. It's fine. We can make this sad for Ziggy too. So I was watching your stream the other day, Ziggy, and you were doing some really good Mirage Archer maths about that Deadeye node. Would you mind just explaining it to everyone, the maths on that node?
Yeah, you think you're gonna like back me into some corner here? I'm gonna have to do math, but no, I'm just gonna give you like a qualitative answer instead.
Yeah, that's good.
If you can keep all three of them up, the math is pretty good on the Mirage Archers. The thing is, there's a lot of situations where you're like, okay, the boss is in a spot where I can DPS them now, so you're gonna sit there and barrage or attack with your single target attack. And when that happens, the second and the third ones drop off, and then you've just got the one that's on top of you. And then it's like, kind of, why do I have this? It's really nice in some situations. And look, I struggled with whether to take Mirage Archer or drop it for other things. But it's really good in things like ritual fights and the Maven 10 boss fights and ones where you're really forced to move around a ton. It is quite nice in them. And if you're keeping 2 up on average, it's the equivalent of like swapping out to something else and getting an okay-ish support gem. But I think it loses out in a lot of situations, apart from maybe some of these toxic rain things and stuff people are playing around with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because when you said that like the duration falls off, I'm like, I've got like a 10-second Mirage Archer, so obviously that's way less of an issue for me because it's a case of just
if you've got duration scaling for another reason, then it's gonna be really good.
How did you find the? Oh, go on.
Just how big of a different distance do you have to be from the Mirage Archer to place another one?
Almost exactly 1 dash range.
But you
like level 1 dash or level 20 dash?
High level dash.
Yeah, like level 15 or something. But what
honestly, if you could play half the radius on them, so you could place them a bit tighter in tighter groupings, that would allow you to kind of take a few steps and not only based on dashes. I think that would be a pretty nice buff for the node and would be reasonable. I don't think it would be super overpowered in that case. I understand the minimum radius to say that you don't just stack them all on top of yourself while you're doing your normal single target. You are forced to move around, but the radius, although it's not huge, and you can definitely fit them in every boss arena, it's just it is a little bit restrictive to keeping all 3 of them up. A little bit awkward at times.
I would mostly agree with that. So I tried that node originally. Yeah, I can say that. When I was giving like feedback and stuff, I tried that node and was like, this AoE is way too big, this is terrible. And that was because I just tried it while leveling with no gear. But then when I wanted to like re-roll a second character and I was like, I've got a 6-link Quill Rain and all this other stuff, I was like, I'll just try it again if I didn't like it. Okay, Pathfinder. With a Quill Rain and with attack speed and with like duration scaling, it feels completely fine. So it's one of those things where like depending on the build you're on and how much mobility you have, it will either feel great or like this is really clunky. And
that's like a best case scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things of, so it's a circular dead zone. So if you don't plan it out, you have to travel quite far to get them all out. And the main complaint I've seen is people saying like it's really bad during rituals because it's a really small enclosed area, but you can overlap the circles because the Mirage Archer is in the middle, if that makes sense. So you can actually stack 3 really close to one another. But if you're like not thinking and you're just randomly like dashing or blink arrowing to the other side, then you can kind of dead zone yourself a little bit. But it's actually really easy to, it's really easy to position if you have high enough attack speed that it's not okay. Like if you were doing this would be a terrible build. But if you're doing like the bow equivalent of like an earthquake, then yeah, that would feel really bad. But yeah, if you're doing like a really high attack speed build, then it feels pretty slick. And the other thing which you didn't talk about, Ziggy, the Gale Winds Wind Wars thing makes you so unbelievably tanky. Like, it is insane how much mitigation that gives.
I'm playing softcore and being, even though I love that node and I love its addition, I'm being omega greedy and I have not taken that.
Wait, you never? Oh, what? Oh, it's so good.
I want the far shot with projectile barrage spread. I want the chain. I want gathering winds, and I want focal point. How am I supposed to take wind ward, Tarke? But this is why I really like the new Deadeye though, because I want every node on the tree except Rupture. Like I really want all of them. So it's good. Like it's been hard, and I've been respect several times in the tree because I've wanted to try and different things and change my mind and all that sort of stuff as the build progressed. So I think that's a sign of like a fairly well designed ascendancy, even if people are bummed about some of the stuff that I lost, which is fair because it lost some big things.
Yeah. I would say it's much more of a hardcore friendly ascendancy than I gave it credit. So when I leveled it as my second build of the league, it was a case of like when you level and you've like all the perfect twink gear and you don't take like a single defensive node until like level 80. That's basically what I did. Just went full like zoom. And then I was mapping and I was doing like tier 14s, tier 16s and stuff. And I'm like, hang on, I'm level 92 and I haven't died once going full like softcore pleb on a evasion build. This actually looks pretty decent. I don't know how good it would feel if you're not using a Quill Rain, because that's the other thing. But if the second I get hit, I'm straight back up to max 10 stacks, 30% damage reduction. So if you were doing it on like a normal case build, it may not feel that tanky. But with the like, just because you just get that plus Wind Dancer Acro Phase Acro, like not needing to set up the Kintsugi first or anything, it is the tankiest I felt on a like Pathfinder or like a Raider or like a Trickster course to carry build with that little gear, taking that little defense early. It's really, really good. But yeah, if you weren't using Quarren, I don't know how I'd feel about it. So, before we get into the other stuff, does anyone want to say anything else about their league start?
Yeah, can I? None of you have been using Hydrosphere in your setups, right? Based on what you've been playing, it sounds like.
I used it a little bit on my Lightning Trapper, but not majorly.
Okay. I'll rant about that skill then. That skill's insane. It can do so many things. I think it's like probably just a decent skill for builds that use it for its regular purpose of like putting it down, putting some damage links on it, hitting it with shock or chill, and then letting it do its pulses. It's going to just be like some damage add. It seems kind of decent. Some builds are experimenting with like recast spamming it to do things like cast on crit setups or custom channels since it pulses each time. Something that is easy to miss is the fact that what it actually does is it drenches enemies when it either passes over them or they're in its AoE temporarily. And then when it pulses, it hits everything that's drenched in a very large area, much larger than you think its area looks like. So it actually can like hit the whole screen quite easily just based on whether it's drenched monsters. And it drenches monsters when it passes through them as well.
Duration on
so
drench.
What's that?
What's the duration on it? The drench?
4 seconds, I think. Hold on, I'll look at it here.
That's actually
base secondary duration is 4 seconds. I'm pretty sure that's what the drenched is, unless it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But, yeah. So that's like pretty damn good, but it's when you start to get into the fact that it's a hittable skill that you really start to get some broken interactions. And after ZiggyD nerfed Frostball, I'm pretty surprised that they released something like this. So firstly, you can hit it with Frenzy skill and get Frenzy charges before a boss fight. You can also hit it with Chain Hook to gate rage as well. That's pretty interesting. You can't crit it, so you can't do like power charge or crit or anything like that. But a lot of the targeting things that benefit from hitting a second target in a boss fight will work very well. So you can chain off of it. You can't chain to it, but you can chain off of it. Things like Lightning Arrow, which is what I'm using it for, to double effectively the barrage hits that I'm doing. Its secondary explosion will hit enemies, and same with Ice Shot. You can hit it with like Ancestral. Frost Blades. You can use it for like auto targeting, so you can position it and set it back from everything. You can use it to focus fire your barrages if you want to with using chain, because if you aren't using focus fire, you can fire into the Hydrosphere and then it'll turn all of your barrages into a single projectile line, so to like focus fire them, so you can chain over longer ranges easier without missing. So some goofy shit like that. You can also like hit it with Molten Strike and any kind of like Ancestral Call sort of stuff
Smite.
to get a second hit. Smite, yeah. People have been doing Wide Strike. You can chain off it with Arc to gain like your increased damage after each chain. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with it.
It's a good skill for this reason and this reason alone. So when it first got announced, there were a few people kind of like, oh, if you put this in like Castle Channeling, it'll always proc, and that was kind of like a meme. And then I haven't watched much of it, but I've seen like every day on Twitch Garatha playing it and like him dying and him re-rolling it. So if Garatha's playing a build and then he dies and re-rolls the same build, that's a good build right there. Like that's the seal of approval as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, haven't played it, but that's good enough for me to be like, yeah, go play that. That'll be good. And the other thing, oh, go on.
Just real quick, can you confirm the Ancestral Call thing? Because I've done some testing, but not a whole lot. But people are saying that you can hit it like twice with Ancestral Call, as in your Ancestral Call will hit it, or you hit it and then the Ancestral Call hits the boss.
It's a targetable thing, and a lot of things that auto target will target it. I haven't actually tested Ancestral Call explicitly, so apologies if I'm wrong. But things like Orb of Storms will auto target it, same as the whatever that Frost Hat skill's called, Winter Orb, whatever it's called. So I think does Ancestral Strike doesn't target it. Johnny is saying it doesn't.
I keep hearing that it does, but then I couldn't really find anybody really showing that it does. The coolest thing that I could find with it after seeing your video, Ziggy, was how so Spectral Shield Throw, you can not chain the initial projectile between the two, but you can hit the boss, or you can hit the Hydrosphere, and then it will bounce to the boss with the chain, but it won't chain like multiple times. But then the small shards do. So if you have like, by default, I think Spectral Shield Throw has how many? I think 5 chains plus 4 from the thing, and then it's got 1 base, I think. So it chains 5 times, and each projectile, the small projectiles are 25% less damage. So like effectively you're getting a whole lot of damage out of that. So a lot of people who might have struggled with single target Spectral Shield Throw previously might not have that problem anymore.
They gave it a pretty significant buff this league too. They buffed the scaling by like 20%, 25%, something like that, and a minor flat buff. They also, one line of text below that in the patch notes, buffed the hitbox size of Spectral Throw and not the hitbox size of Spectral Shield Throw.
It's an interesting one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why I would maybe be interested in that.
Hey, you're spoiling 3.14 patch notes, Octavian. Don't do that. Also, wasn't the whole point of the Ancestral Call thing, just to backtrack a little bit, that you hit the orb and the Ancestral Call hits the boss? Not the
same
other way around.
Yeah.
That's the go. You don't actually have to like have Ancestral Call target the orb if you just hit it yourself, and your second automatic one will target the boss for you. So there's a lot of stuff in single target effectively.
Yeah, if that would be the case, then things like Lightning Strike would be making a pretty big comeback, because it's like making a choice between whether you use Ancestral Call or you like invest into chain, because it's got massive amounts of clear. Lightning Strike does, but then the single target's so problematic, and then its Vol skill is just like
it's
the dumbest thing ever.
I think visually Vol Lightning Strike is cool, and that's about the only success it has.
It's so weird because it's like it's a Vol skill that's supposed to boost your single target, but also doesn't work with like 4 out of the 5 supports that you have on your Lightning Strike. Like, what? How's this supposed to help me?
I hate that when Vol skills don't use any of the same supports. So annoying.
Yeah, it's the multi-strike thing and Ancestral Call. Like I think they should maybe look into that at some point. It's kind of weird, but I mean, they changed it to be that way because it used to work. Like multi-strike used to work with Vol skills, I'm pretty sure, and then they made it not work.
Yeah, yeah, in the glory days of Vol skill fun. Yeah, but definitely investigate the Hydrosphere Orb for a lot of builds, because it does some pretty goofy stuff that I'm very surprised about. It seems like GGG is pretty like familiar with the fact that it has like you can chain off of it and all these approximately secondary effects. So It doesn't seem like it's in danger of being nerfed, although I wouldn't be surprised if they nerfed the generating frenzy charges and rage. I don't see them.
No, I don't see them
intending
doing that.
Yeah. You don't see them nerfing that?
No.
Yeah.
It's
Seems
Mid-league?
unintentional.
No.
Oh, no, not mid-league. but
Oh,
that's
okay.
fine.
Like I mean, I could definitely see them. Like if people find broken interactions between anything, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it would be lower on the list if they were for mid-league nerfs if they were going to do something like that. Besides, they're busy ninja nerfing all the map farming stuff at the moment.
I've been getting so many
Supposedly.
whispers. I don't know who did it, but someone made the mistake of making a Reddit post saying that I had been asked to ask GGG about the Valdo's rest nerf. So now just people are just asking me stuff to ask GGG. It's like, no.
Rest nerf.
Wait, did they actually nerf it?
They nerfed the mirror farming because with the Valdo's Rest is the Harvey has reinforcement node. If you haven't seen it, anyone watching this, that's when you watch a random streamer with 2 bit rate and you're like, what's happening? It's because he's fighting like 1,000 Harbingers at once. You could stack a bunch of the what they call platinum watchstones, whatever they're called, which makes them drop valuable currency and more currency. And you would get like guaranteed mirror shard drops, and people were farming like a mirror an hour and all of that stuff. So they nerfed that. Like that was what got killed. But you can still fight like 30 Harveys
so they're still
every
like
map.
in terms of like how many they're spawning.
Yeah, that's all
farming
fine.
Ancient orbs. Can you still farm ancient orbs?
Yeah, you can still farm ancient orbs. You can still farm horizon orbs. It's just they killed the mirror.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Did they mention that anywhere that they killed it?
No.
Well, no, that's the
they
thing.
They haven't
I
talked about it, right?
No, it
that's
hasn't
the
been
thing.
mentioned.
It's like they definitely nerfed it, and it makes sense for them to nerf it, but they haven't like talked about it anywhere, and then it's just being kind of like fully stealth. I mean, to be fair, it's been the weekend, so maybe they were planning on posting it on about it today.
Did you guys see the burgeoning new exploit is the wrong word. The burgeoning new strat that people are using that just got a Reddit post about it today. The Gilded Scarabs.
Okay.
I haven't heard of this one.
So there's elevated sextants, which are like super duper sextants that drop from, I presume, Maven. And
no, they come from Harvest. They're an upgraded sextant, aren't they?
I have not gotten one, so
are they,
I made the assumption Maven.
I might be wrong as well.
Since elevated mods come from the Maven mod.
Okay,
but they are in the game. I have not reached the point yet where I have dropped one. I think it's the Maven fight, which I haven't done
Chat
yet.
is saying Maven as well.
And those have a chance of rolling super sextant mods. And one of those gives you the Tormented Spirit one, but it drops Gilded instead of not Gilded, Winged. Drops Winged instead of any of the regular types. And that has 15 charges, and you get 3 guaranteed. Provided there's 3 things possessed in the map.
All right.
Also, since the craftable watchstones are magic items, you can imprint those. Turns out imprinting stores sextant charge numbers. So what you do is you run out your 15 maps, and then you go back to the imprinted version with all 15 charges again. And you run out 15, you go back. And you just keep buying Krakik Chimerals, and you get infinite uses.
Right.
And it's a good thing that it's not really easy to sustain Beast this league or anything. It's kind of inevitable that all this rubbish should be happening with how crazy we have Atlas control. Like, there's just so much that it's like...
Yeah, no, there's going to be some edge case that's busted.
This is so fun. This Atlas stuff and seeing all these different ridiculous farms. Because it's like, when you mentioned, like, have you guys seen the new broken thing? I'm like, there's like 5 of them at the moment. Because there's like a ridiculous amount of Legion emblems just dropping, like 3 emblems a map and stuff like that from the, which is the good Legion. New Vastir as well is like insanely good too. I don't even think you really need, like, you can juice it with some of the extra Legion stuff, but that one is like almost just straight there. You're just doing it in high maps.
Shouldn't
farming that thing.
I mean, mathematically over a long period of time, that just works out to, I mean, I say just, that works out to twice as many splendors, right? Because a 1% chance for a full is,
The other thing, which is
high value targets, is like adding extra sergeants and making every sergeant have a reward too. If you haven't done that yet, it's so good.
That's disgustingly strong. One that I feel, okay, I don't want to compare it to the strength of what we just talked about because it isn't as strong, but that I do feel is going under the radar a little bit, and I've had a lot of fun farming, is actually the Essence ones in Haywark Hamlet. Because I've just kind of focused on the harvest nodes there, so I was doing a bunch of Haywark anyway, and I messed around with all the other ones with respecking around and seeing what worked. And the essence the essence node that guarantees every essence spawns a tier higher basically just triples the essences that you get. Because 3 screaming
makes them shrieking.
Yeah.
The essence one is just like a very balanced one. Like that's good.
Very good.
It's very good for SF and stuff.
It feels good to use, but it isn't broken, and I like that. I like that node.
Yeah, that's very good.
I was also going to say, have you seen the harvest strat that people have been doing, which is just like the epitome of just weirdness? It's the Zana one. It makes sense, but it's just so like jank. Basically, you use the hidden Atlas tree you get from doing the Maven stuff, and you stack watchstones, which increase the inventory size of the Zana window. And you basically get it so Zana offers you like 30 maps every time, so you can like pretty much guarantee that she'll always offer you a harvest map. And so people just burn through Zana missions to get guaranteed harvest spawns.
Basically, you get harvest missions now, Zana.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's definitely interesting. I think it's definitely good. I do wonder how many times in the office they've just kind of been like, do we delete imprint? Because imprint, like,
they just need to decide on how they want to interact with both fracture and imprint. Both of those mechanics are stupidly, when it comes to generating anything that has to do with the Atlas, it's very, very broken because it's generating currency out of currency. Like basically by using it, you're basically just copying currency. And that's like an odd thing, right? When it comes to items, that's something you put on and you don't infinitely copy the same item and make more of them. But the fact that it creates more of the same thing, basically, it's kind of odd. I think that's kind of like probably a place they're going to like look into over time, especially with the new Atlas. I would not be surprised.
And one last small thing. I'm addicted to gambling on hollow fossil gear from the Abyss node. It's not actually good. It's far worse than any of the more consistent passive nodes. But like,
Really?
I want to drop that perfect pair of boots with
Yeah.
speed and life in an abyssal socket.
Wow.
It's fun. It's fun seeing the shiny item drop at the end of each abyss and wondering if it'll be good.
I mean, this new Atlas thing is so fun. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's really good.
Have you found anything you could like maybe save through harvest crafting, like removing all the bad mods and then crafting up from an abyssal?
I got a decent pair of boots with like life, move speed, and abyss socket.
Nice.
So they're workable.
Right.
Most of it has been just crappy weapon bases, though.
On the corner there, what are you thinking?
It's just interesting how all these things are pretty much like the highlight of it, like versus like I thought the highlight's gonna be Maven and like the new stuff and everything, but I wasn't too excited about the passives. But then the passives became a lot more interesting, and then especially when you start implementing the watchstones that you get from Maven as well, that makes it like super funky. I got like a 1% weighting on one of my watchstones, which was whenever you drop a mirror of Kalandra,
You get 2.
you drop 2 instead. I actually got that on
You
my.
hit that.
I hit that in like 3 alterations.
Isn't the weighting on that like 7 or something?
It's 1.
It's 1. Okay. That's
It's
not
pretty
1%. That's 1 weighting.
That's funny.
Like to clarify for anyone listening, 1 weighting is out of thousands of total weighting.
That's
It's
really
probably the
funny.
rarest thing that's happened to me, like the entire league, not even close.
Congrats. That's all your luck.
Yeah. I rolled over it. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to drop a mirror.
Yep.
So, good luck.
I have 25,000 hours in PoE. I've never dropped a mirror, so I don't think I'm getting.
I now really want a mirror to drop for you this league, and you're just like,
I'll vendor it.
I mean, that's the SSF way, get that currency back from it. But
Yeah, 2 exalted orbs, dude. I only dropped like 3. It's been insane.
oh, I've
I
got
don't
like
know.
8 exalts, dude. Them fucking
I
balling.
just never been dropping shit.
I
I got really good Archmage gear though, like really good.
So,
Nice.
fair warning. This is one person's experience, small sample size, statistically irrelevant, all that sort of thing. But I dropped 0 exalted orbs the whole league, And then I started actually using ritual vessels and saving up 3 of them from good maps and throwing them in all at the same time with a high investment T16. And ritual has given me 3 exalted orbs in 1 day from that. Juicing them with the blood.
I think juicing makes a big difference. I have a feeling, because like I got really good stuff when I added in the Guardian at one point as well. Gave me Empower 4. You know, it's like it's curious that whenever you start really getting to the high level stuff and you add in the more difficult, it could be that, you know, that there is a
again statistically.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say? I want to see whether or not I can get enough juice together with the upgraded map device, 4 blood-filled vials and like a super duper rolled map to buy out everything in a ritual window, including all the stuff in the reroll. I want to see if that's possible.
Sorry. I haven't done any of the ritual stuff yet. I've just been like saving them up because it feels like a bit of an afterthought mechanic, because it's one of those things of you can't guarantee what happens to the ritual window. So it just seems kind of weird to be like, I'm in a crazy investment, and then you just get like a dud window and a dud reroll, and it's like, I'll start using them eventually. I've had pretty good ritual RNG. So SSF, I haven't played that much. Okay, I'll just clarify, when I say this, I'm talking about the people on this podcast. When I say this, I've only got 2 level 92 characters. So I realize by normal standards that's a lot, but by like, that's like Raiz on 8 rips day 1 sort of vibe, right?
Excuse you? Hello? I've only had 2.
Okay. But like your first character died like 94 or some shit. Like that's, you know what I mean. Me anyway. I've played like
95,
yeah, I haven't played that much. I've had 2 sets of faded connections, 1 on both character, an onslaught implicit synthesis ring, which is definitely the best thing I've had by far. About 4 exalts, level 3 enhances, random like level 1 empowers and lightens. Just like lots of random good stuff. So yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a case of, oh, if you've used a special ritual, it's like just play the game. And it's definitely a lot noticeably better in reds than it is in yellows and whites. So if you like, even if you can only farm like just tier 11s, just like blast through tier 11s and you'll get the ones.
I've only had crap, but like I still like it a lot. Like a lot. It's one of those mechanics that I just really enjoy. Even when the Maven event was happening, I was like, I should probably stop doing this and actually progress, but I actually liked it. I don't know. There's something about the simplicity of it that's super interesting to me. And it works really well, even though I'm not, like, I've never gotten a wow item out of it at all. It still feels great to me, and I'm not like, ooh, these rewards suck. I heard some people were complaining on Reddit about how it's not that rewarding in my experience, even though I haven't gotten the empowers and lightens and exalts. It still feels really good.
I mean, it's the kind of mechanic that's relatively low effort and input on the part of the player, right? Like, what do you have to do to interact with ritual? You stand in a place and kill a lot of mobs that spawn. Like, that's a thing that I want to do anyway. So I don't know. Like, there's no management of blight lanes and towers. There's no like deciding things on a Jun tree and having all this stuff to figure out. So I don't really mind if the reward level is a little under some other more complex mechanics with cooler rewards at the very top end of interaction, because you just it's just more map to blast in the end. Like, it's just more monsters to kill in a circle.
It's also really good for just getting like 5 alterations and like 5 outs. Yeah. It's really, really nice for people who struggle to set to like a stricter loot filter. I can be really bad at that in SSF, where I'm like, I won't want to take like arm scraps off my filter until I've got like a massive stockpile. But you can make like really aggressive filters and just buy all the random small currency off it, which I quite like.
That's the greatest thing about it. You know how like sometimes, like for instance, I don't pick up splinters from breach guys, but then if I kill a boss and it drops a whole lot of splinters, I'll pick them up, you know, because they're just all stacked together and so nice. And it's basically the same principle here, where it's like, well, do I really want to pick up every chromatic? Not really, but 5 from ritual, hell yeah, dude, that's like my favorite thing in the world. I'll get it every time. I feel like it's simple stuff like that that just works really great with the system, I think.
I feel like the fact that we're, you know, longer term players getting excited about seeing like 5 alterations in a convenient little stack It feels like when you get older and you actually get legitimately excited about getting some nice socks or something like that. Like we're getting the basic stuff, and it's
don't get the reference.
nice. You don't have to think about it.
Socks are amazing. I get angry that people don't get me socks for Christmas and birthdays. Socks are the best present. I've been like that since I was like 12. I would pog out if I got socks. But because I like socks, people don't get me socks because they worry the socks they get me won't be good enough.
Well, that's the thing. You're like literally the only person in the world ever that I've ever paid attention to when it comes to socks. I've never noticed anybody else's socks, but Tarke, he wears some socks, man.
I do wear
Because he
socks.
wears 2 short pants.
Tarke makes you notice.
Exactly.
3/4 pants so that
It's
you can
true.
highlight the socks.
Nice little cuff.
Subtle, huge shoes so the socks are highlighted.
Serious?
He actually does that.
That's usually where you want to cuff your trousers too. By the way, chat. That's you want those nice little garters going up to there.
Sorry to have derailed the conversation. I was just trying to make an analogy.
Moving away. Yeah, no. When you mentioned socks in front of Tarke, I was like, I don't know. I think what Raz is saying is like ritual. Even when you don't get good stuff, is still pretty rewarding though. Like you're always getting like a few cows worth of stuff, and it's a lot of like useful little things and bits and pieces too. But mine and Amy's ritual has been insane though. We've gotten a lot from it. We've gotten multiple exalts from the stores, plenty of the like stacks of 10 chaoses and stuff like that. Some of the gems, a 6-link prophecy, various. I've got like 1 billion deafening essences. I've got the most essences I've ever had in my life from ritual. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with all those.
Arcane work. Get even more.
Essence. I feel like that's so pointless though in ritual because like you can get so many good essences from ritual itself. I'm like, why would I even do? Why would I even do that?
One thing?
There's none at all to buy on hardcore trade. I went to buy some zeals to try and craft a bow, and there were 4. It was great.
God.
One thing I will say on the ritual front, because I made a video about this, ritual I think, because it is amazing, ritual can make you go full tilt so easily, and I can definitely sympathize with people on a smaller play scope. Like even people who can play regularly, but they can only play like a couple of days a week. So I had a Faded Connections pop up on my first character, end of day 1, and I'm like, yes. I then didn't see it until 4 days later, playing like 12 hours a day every day. So if that was just like an average dude playing who can maybe only play like 12 hours a week, if that, like they wouldn't have seen it until the end of the month, and that's just the second time to defer it again.
I'm really confused about why that happened to you, because I'm not the windows, because all the big things I've had are regularly showing, like my Empower 4, Mjolnir, all the big things I've had have shown up within a couple of maps.
I've had a few friends who've had the same thing that me.
Right. It might have been a result of you getting it while leveling that might have played weird with the mechanic.
A really good example of that, which I just found funny, it's a much smaller scale. Wolfio deferred a level 2 axe, and he didn't see it again until he was like 38. Which I just find really funny. So while leveling, he was like, "Oh, this would be a good leveling item," and then he just didn't see it again until 38, which is like.
It might be. There might be some safeguards on deferment while leveling and in lower level zones because they don't want you to spam reset zones in order to get the thing that you deferred back quickly.
Maybe. But anyway, so just to finish the Faded Connection story. So I didn't see it again until like day 4 or something of the league. I defer it again. It disappears for like another 2 days. I see it again, full clear everything, and then I didn't have enough tribute to defer it, so it went backwards a stage, which triggered the hell out of me. Then it popped up again, and the map hard crashed, and I lost the map. So then that was another deferral lost, because I didn't fit it. Like I saw it in the first one, and then I lost the map. So then I just went full tilt and was like, "Screw this! This is rubbish." Da 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 da. I then started leveling up in another character, and I've now gotten a new Fated Connections on defer, so I'm fine again. Good league mechanic, because deferrals are character specific, not account wide.
Yes.
But it is one of those things where there are so many people. Like you saw the random Reddit posts and stuff. It was like day 1, Oh, I got offered a headhunter. Can't defer it.
But that's that's the illusion that they lost something because they never had it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
That's the upside of it, that the person that you're describing, like the guy who plays 10 hours a month or whatever, they don't fucking know what a Fated Connections is because they've never seen it, they've never heard about it, they'll never see it. At least this way, it's like they've got an opportunity to witness it, be in the presence of it.
I think I agree to that. So I think the one thing about it, which is a bit iffy, because I think one thing that the mechanic does very well is it's very good for setting long-term goals, because it's a case of you see this thing that's like, I'm going to work towards this over the next however many days, however many hours, however many whatever. But because you can have the situation that I had where it's like you see something, you start deferring it over the case of like 3 or 4 days, you can very easily just run into like 3 maps where you don't get enough tribute to defer it again, and you just lose your long-term goal, and you just see it going backwards step by step by step.
Right.
That's
so how much is the highest you've seen something being like the cost of a deferral?
The highest
Like
cost of a
Fated
deferral, I
Connection.
can't remember off the top of my head. The highest like individual thing that I've encountered has been like 25k.
For one, like that can't be. Oh, is it like the total cost of the item?
Yeah, the total cost was like
That means you would
25k. Yeah,
Right, so you would need to pay what, 3,700?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite steep. I mean, it would be nice if they had some kind of safeguard system that makes it so whenever anything is shown, it's only in places where it's already been determined that there is enough in the area, because you can't drag anything to the zones anyways, right?
Yeah,
so
it's
like
fixed.
every single place should have a set amount. Also, I thought that whenever you would go through a ritual, if you did like a juicy one first, it would then kind of cascade throughout the whole thing, but it doesn't seem that you're getting more. It's like you're getting whatever this like the area is giving you, but it's not like repeating that again and again and again. The monsters might come back, but the extra juice is that getting added again?
It's weird. I've been testing a bunch of the like really paying attention to a lot of the like cascading effects and also the ritual vessels and stuff like that, and what they do. And there's some weird inconsistencies with how it works. So one thing I discovered yesterday, so I did a map where I put in like 12 bosses from ritual vessels. I went to a bunch of multi-boss maps and put them in.
Right.
And the first ritual, so in theory, putting them on the map, they should be on every single ritual, right? Like those 12 bosses should appear each time. The first ritual, like 2 or 3 bosses appeared. Second one, a few more. Third one, a few more. And then the fourth one, the final one, all 12 appeared at the exact same time, popped out, and basically frames dropped to nothing, and we died horrendously. But,
Heroically.
Nice.
Heroically is what I was going for, yes. We died heroically. So there's some sort of like cascading mechanic there where it's like giving you a bit more of them each time, and there's some weirdness with the like cascading in the maps itself. And also even in capturing stuff, I'll find a spot where there's like almost no monsters there. You use a ritual vessel on it and you get like 100 monsters. And then you find a spot that had like a shitload of monsters there that are quite clearly tagged for the ritual, and you get like 50 monsters. So I don't know also what's determining the ritual vessel sometimes seems inconsistent too.
There's
weird.
Also, I don't know if you've noticed this. Oh, and to backtrack a second, someone said the 25k that showed up yesterday, so that was after the vol change, because they'd made a change to reduce the cost on some. There's tech which stops your rituals from getting bricked if it's a case of like a ritual spawning next to a wall. You've probably noticed that, where it's like if you're like in a cells kind of layout, you have the ritual will like automatically ready itself when half of the monsters are still alive. Like, you know how normally you kill all the monsters and then you can activate the ritual? If there's a wall, even if you can actually walk around the wall and reach those mobs, like there's no doors blocking you, it feels like half the time the ritual doesn't let you get those monsters. They'll just be like, nope, that's a terrain block. And they just
it's like a safety mechanic to stop you from getting like padlocked, which is pretty good that they did that, actually. Like, I'm pretty impressed that they were able to.
It is good that they do that,
that,
but at the same time, it can be annoying feeling like you're losing like half of your ritual, because it's a case of, I can see them, like I can attack them through this wall. So
It's probably better it's like this though.
it's better that it's
And
like
then-
that than
and
like
then
every other
players
ritual
will
breaks.
just figure out the best layouts that don't have these issues where it's like open and it's always working better. You know, like over time you'll figure that out.
One thing I wanted to ask earlier, if we could get to it before we go crazy on the ritual stuff, how's everyone's performance been this patch?
So bad.
It's a roller coaster.
The worst ever.
Yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
very poor performance that has been very consistently one kind of poor performance, where I play for 3 or 4 hours, the game hard crashes, I restart the game, and I have to run low-level zones until magically one of the zones I load into has a really long loading screen, like 30 seconds long, and then everything's fine again for 3 or 4 more hours. And that is consistently been the cycle over and over again until I completely clean reinstalled the game to a new drive, and now it works fine.
Mine's mostly been the texture streaming thing. It's like the start of every map, a solid 10, 15 seconds of texture loading, low frames, can't see anything, packs are invisible, my skills lag the game.
Everything's
And the-
blurry.
I'll get that.
Yeah.
But like,
It's
I'm
so
not
annoying
crashing
because like it happens in the boss fights and stuff too. And you can't like I've tried just standing around and like firing my skill and stuff, and that like helps a little bit, but it's still when the monsters first appear, it loads their textures as well or something. I don't know, it's weird. But when you start the Maven fight, the Maven boss fights as well, it's like lag at the start of those for the first few bosses you're fighting. It's
I don't get
really
it,
rough.
like how it works either. If it like loads it on the fly or preloads it. Because for instance, when I was leveling my characters, consistently, entirely through all of the leveling, up until like Act 5, which starts to have like longer zones, I guess. Act 4 maybe a little bit too. But 1, 2, and 3, every time I used the movement skill, it would like not load in textures, and for like a couple seconds, everything would be invisible. And it was every single time I used the movement skill, 100% of the time. And it's like, bro, I mean, I know that these are the sort of problems that we as PoE players are like, it's not that big of a deal. At least I can play. It's not crashing. But like, realistically, I mean, this is horrible. Like, it's really, really bad.
It feels like we've gone back in time like 6 years or something to when we used to start at the start of like our game session, we'd like spam as many skills as possible and take the first map very slow because we'd wait for all the textures to like load into a memory. And then after that, it would be fine. It's like that, but for every map now. So it's like we've gone backwards from that.
Yeah.
Because now that's happening every single time. And I feel like it even happens when you like portal back into maps sometimes. Like if I die in a map and Amy drops me a portal and I portal back in and there's monsters around, it's like 10 seconds of texture loading.
It's like how bad Delirium is when you first see it after you open the game, but like every time. It's like,
What about you,
it's a
Niggy?
bit far.
In performance?
Yeah.
I mean, so the game actually runs fine on Vulkan if I could run Vulkan. So I tried putting Vulkan back on. It's like, oh yes, I have my performance back, and then it crashed once an hour for 2 days straight. I was like, I didn't die from it, but I was like, okay, we're just gonna keep trying and tinker around with it, see if it. And then a patch came out that fixed a lot of crashes, but not for me. So then I went back to DX11. Haven't had one crash since. It's 2 days ago versus 20 over 2 days. So Vulkan is clearly bricked for a lot of people. I know that it works for some people, but it's like I feel like I hear that NVIDIA is worse for Vulkan. But I mean, this is all.
I can't do DX11 anymore. Ever since Vulkan came out, DX11 does not work for me ever.
Oh, really?
100% of the time, it's like maybe 10 FPS, maybe 15, or just like repeatedly crashes, like literally every 5 minutes. It's completely not working. I can only do Vulkan. I've been pretty happy with it overall. I did crash more this league than any other league ever before. Before Heist, I've never crashed in PoE ever. The last league where I crashed like more than a handful of times in an entire league was Parandus. So my game never crashed, but then in Heist I crashed a lot, and here I crashed even more. It's pretty surprising. And they're pretty like bad crashes too, because some of them just close your game to desktop and it's fine, but some of them get like hung up on the whole Windows thing, and it's like, okay, my character's going to standard now. I haven't died to it, but it's pretty spooky.
The crash that killed me completely shut my computer down.
Oh,
Like,
that's a nice one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Had that happen in
the whole
Heist.
thing just hard crashed. It did that thing where the screen freezes up and it keeps playing the same 2-second sound over and over again, and then the computer.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, I didn't have for Vulcan in Delirium, not a crash. Ever since Harvest, I haven't been able to play with Vulcan ever since without having constant crashes. And then I mean, whenever I click General's Cry, I go from 120 FPS down to like half a second with 0.
Mm.
It's like it's so frustrating. It's like I want to fortify right now.
I have that too. General's Cry is weird. It lowers my FPS by like 60. It goes from like 120 to like 60 every time.
It's on the first time you click because it has to load them in again.
I've been
Per map.
gathering gear for
Per
the
map.
Girls Cry build next.
You
Don't
should do
tell
it,
me
Octavian. It sounds good. Sounds really good.
I mean, if it's just once, I don't know. I haven't like noticed.
You can pre-do it early in the map if you don't want to have the random spike later on, because then you've loaded in the text. I think it is with this like preloading of textures.
That sounds like a fun time.
Can I just say, you know how people will be like, I don't know how people ever thought the clouds were gods. Like, religion is such a scam. This is what made like Aztecs sacrifice thousands of people. Like, oh, but did you know that if you actually press these skills exactly at the start of the map, you will never have any crashes and no bad RNG later on.
So which of you guys do I sacrifice to fix my problems?
Right.
I want to play General's Cry.
Yeah. I've had the complete opposite thing. So when Vulcan first came out, when did it actually first originally come out?
Delirium.
My performance
Pretty sure, right?
was good. Like, Delirium was horrible for streaming because it just covers the screen and artifacts. So, like, my bitrate looks potato. But Vulcan was great. They did a patch at some point halfway through Delirium, and now I cannot run Vulcan ever. Like, there was one patch which came out after the release of Vulcan. Whenever I run it, I get, like, 2 frames, terrible performance, so I have to use DX11. I try and go back to Vulcan after, like, every single, like, new update, and it just doesn't work for me. I've had constant hard crashes. I had a really weird one. Like, I haven't had this in... Yeah, this is, like, a weird beta thing. So I had a map, I was doing Shore, and I could enter the map, I could go around the entire outside of the map, but if I ever took a step towards the middle, it would hard crash.
That there was forbidden content there. That's some of the content.
So
Grilson.
what I had to do was, because I wanted the loot and I wanted to finish my rituals, because there was stuff on the ritual I needed to defer, but I couldn't get to like the ritual in the middle. Is I was like having to portal in, hug the wall, and I'd be like, up, crashed. Okay, we can't go up. Okay, maybe I go down this. Oh, we can go down. Okay, we can go now. Step to the right, crash. Okay, no, okay, we'll go slightly further. And it was like, this has been my worst performance in, a long time. Like a long time. It's been really, really bad.
It's all over the place though. Some people are getting really good performance, and some people on lower end PCs especially being like, "This is the best performance I've ever had." So
it's the new streaming stuff. It just it helps low end PC. Everyone I talk about that says they have a good experience is on low end PCs.
I spoke to someone at GG because I was trying to get a statement on like, do you know what's going on with that? And I was told they were getting like reports from low end PCs, so it's odd to hear that. So I think it's one of those things where it's just like, I've always said with PoE, it's like, have you tried turning your audio down? Like, sometimes that will be the fix. Like, real talk, like, you change your audio down and think it's like, oh, my performance is great now. So, yeah, I really have no idea.
Oh, speaking of this sort of thing, I had something interesting. So when I use Lightning Arrow with its default MTX, it completely hard cuts all the audio on my PC. And whenever I fire it, and I fire pretty quick, so it's like a constant pop, 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 pop stuttering of my audio. When I swap to the Blood MTX, it's works perfectly.
I've had that with.
I had to buy an extra Gore MTX for my single target.
You had
Same thing with DD, by the way.
What's
Not with
that?
sound, but with performance. Detonate Dead straight up gives everyone I've told. So I saw that I was told that it had better performance with the, what's it called? This one called Void Detonate Dead. So I was like, okay, let's try it. And I could immediately see that it didn't stutter as much whenever I would use it. And I talked to some more people about, well, have you tried it? Yeah, and they also get more. And now I've been saying to people, hey, I mean, it's working for me. Anecdotal evidence here. But everyone I've recommended who bought it has been like, yes, I can now play DD. Every single one, without fail.
Oh,
It was
no.
the same thing with Volatile Dead, right?
Yeah.
Like there was something like that too. You guys had the Maven boss fight audio bug where like she sounds weird, and I keep getting that where she like goes to your static key, or she like speeds up or slows down her speech patterns. No,
I haven't had that with
Crazy.
Maven. I get that a lot with just random. I get it with Betrayal, like just lots of random triangle dialogue.
No, here it's like she's like, oh, what does she say? Faster or something? She just goes like, faster, or she goes faster.
I've not had that,
And
no.
then it's like super staticky, like it's recorded in a toilet or something. It's really weird.
Huh.
You've just progressed further along the Maven quest line than we have.
Yeah,
Raiz.
it's just the Nikke progression, but better. A final thing before we move on, because we could talk about this for hours. It was something you said specifically about the movement skill thing, which I found interesting. Have any of you guys regularly used a Withering Step at all over the last couple of leagues? Because Withering Step
yes.
for me was the one ability that would always cause weird, like the streaming issues we're having now. Withering Step would do that every single time you pressed it.
And it's like a big
really?
green square on screen.
Yeah, but now they've managed to extend that to just the entire game. They've added the functionality to everything else.
I used it quite a lot, never had an issue.
Yeah, same.
It's always because I use it in like every build because I use it instead of Wither Totems, and every time I pressed it, it would always like make my character go invisible and like something weird would happen.
Dude, the greatest thing about this update is that I can finally do monitor capture on OBS now, because before with Vulkan, my screen would like flashbang and everything would start stuttering. And now it actually works. Oh my god, it's such a lifesaver, because so many times on stream I'd be like, whoa, look at this really cool thing, guys, and I'd show it on screen, but I wouldn't have monitor capture, and it would just be game, and nobody would see it, and I'd be it's the worst. But now it's always on, so no problem.
Cringe.
It was very cringe, yes. And I do that shit all the time. It was like 3 leagues of that. Well, ever since Vulkan came out, it was like that.
I can relate. OBS is PoE is hard enough, and then when you're trying to make OBS work on top of it. Anyone who was here for the setup of this podcast knows OBS.
It was like 7 years of, a habit, it being like monitor capture. I couldn't switch. Like, it's impossible at that point. Actually, yes, was it yesterday or maybe the day before? No, I think it was yesterday. It was the open beta anniversary of PoE, 8 years.
Yeah.
Which was exactly the day when I started playing, because I didn't want to play closed beta because it was $10, and I was like,
I did the same thing.
$10? You gotta be ridiculous. So I waited like 6 months for open beta to launch, and that was exactly the day when I started playing. So 8 years now. Pretty cool.
With that out of the way, let's get into Echo's discussion. We'll save the actual Maven boss fight for the next episode, because I know that Ziggy wants to do spoiler free. And also, just have any of you actually done the Maven fight?
No, not yet.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Harsh
yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
Harsh.
No, because I haven't done it
to
either.
do
The
it.
only people who would have done it would be in Raiz and Nugiyen, but they've had some unfortunate events happen. So,
I was supposed to do it.
That's
I
harsh.
ran 250 maps and didn't drop an invite, and then I said, fuck it, dude. Like, it was ridiculous. People are like, oh, I dropped 6 in a row, and I'm like, 250 maps, no invites? Okay, dude, cool.
Well, let's talk about that then. So, I've tuned into your stream a couple of times, and there's been some salt about how the whole like Maven RNG works. So do you want to
Oh
explain
my
that?
god. Explain it? How the fuck am I supposed to explain it? Ask ZiggyD that. It's insane, dude. So people have been reporting all sorts of like things on how to get the invites, and you gotta have 2 fingers up your ass and 3 up your ear, and then it magically drops, and like all this nonsense. And I tested all of it, all right? I tested all the methods.
Very thorough.
And yeah, obviously everybody was talking a bunch of nonsense. It was all bullshit. And the invites just drop, and that's it. They either drop or they don't. She doesn't have to be in the map. It doesn't have to be witnessed. There's no entropy system. I have multiple regions that have every single map completed in the entire region, and she will still well, she doesn't appear at that point anymore, and the invites won't drop, or sometimes they will. And yeah, some regions drop 3 invites in 3 maps, and some regions dropped 0 in 250 maps. I don't understand how they could have made such a
So-
massive mistake.
Clarification. So then I'm still doing the regular ones where you capture the X amount of bosses and then she gives you the invite guaranteed.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the rare ones that you?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you
once
need
you
to
have
get the
10
rare ones
10
to get the
ones.
splinters.
And
to
the
make
other,
Yeah.
the other invitations.
And it's especially frustrating because like you thought they would have learned something from Conquerors, but it seems like they repeated the absolute like exact mistake. But I think also to like a much greater degree, like I would bet a lot on the fact that they changed it last minute. Because even if you follow the quest log and even if you kind of like follow what everybody's telling you to do, it's like the opposite of what you need to do. It trains you to do the opposite when you've finally got 10. Like for instance, if you follow your quest log, it shows you how many more like maps remaining until you drop the thing. But then when you're on 10, the counter just disappears. So it's like, oh, you need 2 more maps to drop the invite. And then you get to 10 and just the counter disappears, but it still says bring Maven into your map. Maven has to witness your map or whatever to drop an invite. It's completely not true. So they must have like last minute changed a bunch of stuff. I have no idea. It's just
Weird.
really surprising that they got so much feedback on Conquerors and introduced all these cool systems, and there's so much potential in it, but then they gated it with this thing that I mean they must have known isn't going to work. I don't know. But I do think that there's some sort of bug though. Because
Yeah,
like the 250 thing is just
that
way too
doesn't
weird.
sound right. Because I was before I died on to the bears, right? I was just farming high level maps, and I
Mhm.
got, because I heard you were talking about it. Then I start farming high level maps, and I got 8 invitations in 8 hours. I only get I get to Nugiyen and I get Hamlet, which are the 2 that I have. I'm currently building towards with a 10. I don't have any others where I've like that's where I've done the 8 already. And so I was currently building to the 10, so I'm getting those 2 only. Like I don't think I can drop for the other areas at all. So it's like it'll only drop for actually I think it'll only drop for the regions that you can actually run them in. So that makes sense.
Mm-mm.
And then I got 3 just 3
You can-
random runs.
You're talking about the non-guaranteed ones?
Yeah, non-guaranteed. Like the 10
Yeah,
ones.
you can drop as many as you want in a single region. Like they repeat.
Yeah, but you will only drop for the regions where you are actually eligible to run them in.
Oh
like,
yeah. Sure.
Under the newest. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
It's just really odd if like you're running that amount of maps. I mean that to me sounds like something has to be bugged, because that's just
it's
just
too big of a number, you know. And I've
Yes.
heard it from many people. It's not a matter of like probability past a certain degree. Like it's just too many. Like
I
Yeah.
mean, it could just be that something was broken. There was a bug at the start of the league where heist progression was completely broke, which ruined. I know it ruined
Oh.
my heist experience. So there was a weird thing. A few people had this. I think Ziz had this. Why I think I heard him talk. Someone told me that he was talking about this. You would never meet new rogues, and I know that you have to do the rogues in a certain order.
oh.
But I made a point of like, okay, what I want to do is I want to get all my rogues unlocked day 1, get them all to at least level 3, so I don't ever have that situation of, oh, I get a contract and it's too high eye level for my rogues. So I made a point of doing every single contract I could. As soon as I got contract, every single quest, every single thing, going through. I had all of the 3, like, Isla, Tibbs, and Cast, like, all pushing level 3, level 4, and hadn't seen anyone else. And I'm just like, this is wrong. Like, this has to be wrong. And then I saw a couple other people talk about it, and they were like, yeah, no, I've had just completely bricked progression. I didn't start getting new rogues, and I was doing heist content every single day until, like, Tuesday or Wednesday.
Just remove it from your filter, dude. See the light. Fuck heist. Remove it from your filter. You'll be happier, man. I'm telling you.
I've been in heist once this league. I get my specters.
Yeah, I imagine that's most people's experience with it.
Loud.
But yeah, so the reason why I mentioned it though is like there was something just hard wrong there. It might have been that was also happening with the Maven, because like that's a fix now apparently, and that was in the exact same time window that you were doing your big push, Raiz. So maybe it was related, maybe it's not related. I don't know.
Well, it's especially weird. I'm trying to find so I don't like misquote what they said, but Carve already, like, this was like 2 days into the league, and Carve said 2 things already making me a bit sour. But the new Path of Exile expansion, I was expecting widespread dissatisfaction as people get to this point in the Maven progression. No guaranteed invites for 10-way fights. So that's like completely random. And then 10-way fights don't drop at least one splinter towards Maven. That can also happen, which is like especially
right.
where you just like don't have a guaranteed, even if you do get the invite, and even if you do get it. And then immediately they responded with, we're changing this so that if you haven't completed 10 boss fight in your region yet, you'll automatically get a key for that fight when you capture your 10th boss in that region. If you roll at least 20 quantity on your map, you should get at least 1 Maven Splinter. This was, a week ago now. And so, like, the super swift response from them to like a random, Twitter thing.
Especially from like Carve as well.
Yeah, especially from the fact that they respond to Carve, who tends to be like kind of salty.
Carve tends to be very salty, and this is no slight against Carve. I adore Carve. I shout out wherever I can, but like Carve tends to be very salty. And if you're like a big company and you're going to be replying to random streamers on Twitter, he's the kind of streamer that you could ignore. Like, he doesn't have an insanely massive following. He's known for being kind of salty. And the other thing is, like, when Carve complains about something, you could write down Carve's complaint in perfect English, and 99.9% of the PoE community would be like, I don't understand what the issue is. Because they haven't reached that content yet. And even if they have reached that content, they're like, I don't know what he means. Like, I don't get it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and this was the big problem, too. Like, that was exactly why I was saying that I was testing out, like, all the methods and all the mumbo-jumbo, because we're just reaching it and just trying to figure it out. And, it's just really weird. But they responded to him immediately. So they knew that there's, like, some sort of issue, but then they're not talking about there being, like, very clearly some problem that some people have with very specific regions where they just do not drop maps. And it's different regions for different people, or do not drop invites. But then they haven't implemented the system either. Like, that was a week ago, and they still haven't done anything. It's like, I understand that it wouldn't be a priority immediately because people aren't reaching that content yet. But at this point, I mean, most people have seen the 10 boss fight at least once, or like, they're trying to get splinters for Maven, and ain't happening. So I wonder if at some point they're going to be like, yo, there was a bug, or if they're just not going to address it at all, or maybe they were like, yeah, this is intended, we're never changing it, fuck you.
Outside of the Maven itself, because there's clearly some issues there, how intuitive do we find the system up until the 10 boss fight?
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I do
think Conquerors, but without RNG.
Yeah, I think they did a good job, like, up till the 10 boss fight. It's a shame because I haven't gone past that, so it's a real shame to hear that, like, it's been a mess past that point. But I've been really happy with it up until, and it is one of those unfortunate scenarios where, like, the vast majority of players will still be in the, like, getting to, like, their 6th watch fight. So hopefully by the time they get up to the Maven stuff, most of the stuff is ironed out there. But yeah, I do always feel bad whenever there's like a big race and stuff, and it's just like,
I don't think it's that big of a miss, because at least for the majority of players, because trade is a thing, right? It's mainly if you play SSF. I think there's a where RNG can really screw us, because it reminds you a lot about, like, say you want to set up a Shaper fight and you keep getting, not your one dude that you're missing, and it's not horizon in, or you're not like swapping into the correct fragment, and you end up with 8 of all except the one. It's like kind of that kind of thing we're in, where it's like if there's no mitigating factor for like this part of RNG, there'll always be some players that are just gonna get screwed by it, and there's nothing really you can do about it.
Also, especially interesting actually because one of the bounties for this like Maven event was like different bosses to kill. One of them was Shaper and Elder, and Mosh got there on like day 1
Good
and
fun.
killed both. And it was like, how in the fuck did that happen? Like nobody, well, I couldn't figure it out. But then I was on my reroll, and it turns out that even if you're doing like a 4 boss fight,
Right.
it can drop a Guardian T16. Like
Yeah.
what?
It
And I
seems
just like
to,
5 in a row. It's like, oh well, that's not RNG at all. I mean, I like that they're dropping. It was just like very surprising because they're so rare, and now for them to happen like all the time from low maps, pretty crazy.
I think it's a bug because it seems like the map bosses, when ported into Maven's arena, are given the like woke level bonuses. So the things like the chance to drop Atlas currencies, chance to drop a Guardian, and
Yeah.
it seems to just give them a baseline amount of that rather than taking into account your Atlas current state.
Yep.
Which I like the idea of giving them those benefits because it makes it
Kind of cool.
yeah, you get more loot from the 10 boss fights because that
You get something instead of nothing.
yeah,
You would normally get.
killing 10 map bosses is not really going to be that much loot in terms of drops normally.
I'm not gonna lie, the bug where your awakening bonus applies to the acts for bosses, that was pretty cool. Like I was leveling up. I was like I killed Brutus, I think, and he dropped the Guardian map. That's
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I was dropping like unique items from
Right,
random
so you could
bosses, and I
actually
was like,
just
"What?"
farmed Brutus over
Yeah.
and over again, and just found.
Possibly. I don't know.
mean,
I
you
just
could
like went through
speedrun
the
that.
story
You
and
know, just
yeah.
reset the zone and go.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
You know, I'm hearing
I was dropping uniques and
Onigarashi
everything.
farm. Hey.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, people were dropping uniques from Hillock, so they were actually doing it. I know some guy was like farming. Some guy was farming Court's Trials that way, just
Nice.
running Hillock over and over, and it was actually pretty decent. So,
Wow.
yeah. But they fixed that already. So
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, everyone else. I'll speak to the co-op as I think the only party player here, right?
Yeah.
I'll speak to the co-op experience for this whole Maven Echoes thing. They did a really good job with this, which is super sweet, because whenever you complete a map boss with the other person there, as long as they have the correct number of watchstones in their atlas, they also get the boss capture, which means you both get invitation. If you've done all the maps together, you both get invitations at the same time, and you can just run those boss fights back to back. So that progresses perfectly in co-op play. But what it really does, though, is it highlights how awkward it is that the other stuff, the Conqueror stuff, doesn't work in party play. Because no Conqueror progression occurs for the other person in the party if they're on your Atlas.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Yeah, so you need the Watchstones to get the Maven progression, but they got to go do their Atlas separate to get that to happen in the first place. So there's a weird kind of like disconnect here with like the Maven Echo stuff being fantastic for co-op, but the original Conqueror stuff being really completely un-co-op friendly. Apart from like map completion's the only thing you do get.
They changed that, right? Because I remember people would like essentially generate watchstones for people who didn't have like a developed atlas when Conquerors first came out. Like you could drop watchstones for other people essentially.
That would be why they like made it not co-op friendly, is because you could effectively like carry people through that stuff. But I mean, you could do the same stuff with the Maven fights as well, like carry them through their Maven captures and their things and unlock all their passives for them. So it's the exact same problem, but they didn't care about it here. So I don't know. And besides, you can buy watchstones now anyway if you're playing trading. So that's like a non-issue. I don't know.
To interrupt, sorry, I got sent this message from Bex and I missed it, and I can say this. Most likely tomorrow or the next day. 2 things. By the way, with ritual stuff, we're making it so that the rituals periodically check that monsters have walkability to the center of the ritual, and if they don't, they'll teleport them to the middle. So that will fix the issue that we mentioned earlier in our indoor layouts. And this is for Raiz. Maven's invitations are now a guaranteed drop upon capturing the 10th boss in an Atlas region for the first time.
Cool. So you get 8 splinters and you need 10. So it doesn't fix anything. Awesome. Because there's only 8 regions. And I've already done all of them anyway, so thanks. Super useful. No, I mean it's good. It's a good start, but then yeah, and I do think that I might have like recognizing that there was something off. I might have gotten a little bit too hung up on like that single region that just happens to have harvest and just happened to not work. Because I know that for other people, it was different regions where they just weren't dropping the invites.
You do know that you can get more than one splinter though, if you choose them. So it's like Maven also wants you to like actually show that you are worthy. So maybe you're just not worthy to get 10 splinters, right?
I've only heard that approximately 2,000 times in an hour every day for 20 hours from my chat. Yes. Nonstop. You're just not worthy, blah, blah, blah. Do this, do that. Oh, just, it was a nightmare.
Feels good, man.
Yeah, it's always hard to complain about that sort of stuff, you know, because a lot of people are just like, oh, you're just a complainer. But it's like, well, I've played for 10 hours, you've played for 2. Naturally, I'm going to be like further down the line, and the problems that I encounter, you'll eventually encounter too. So, and they might not be a problem for you, but they might be. And so, like, to bash on that from the beginning, it's a tricky thing to talk about.
No,
it's like that comment earlier.
Relate.
About Fated Connections where people called me out for being elitist, but I didn't mean it in a way where it's like, you know, you're not going to see an item. It's just that I've never seen a Fated Connections. If I haven't heard about it from you guys on Baeclast, I wouldn't know what it is, right? So with Ritual, at least you get the experience of seeing something like that.
Going back to the co-op stuff, like, how do you feel that this meshes with the Cirrus system then? Considering that it's like you have this kind of working co-op system and not working co-op systems, Ziggy.
I think the big upside in a general sense is that like this means that the dead stretches of nothing happening on the Atlas are much more interesting now because you're capturing bosses and doing the boss fights and unlocking passives, and then those are making things more interesting. So overall, the Atlas is like way better, and we're having a much funner time in co-op. And it's so good that the Maven stuff does work co-op because it would be impossible if it didn't. Like, co-op would be, I mean, co-op is a roller coaster in Path of Exile because some things work really well, like Bestiary, and some things work really trash. But it would be impossible if it didn't work. Like if the Maven captures didn't work, so you'd have to go capture your 3 bosses on your Atlas, then you'd have to go capture your partner's 3 bosses on their Atlas if you wanted to progress their stuff, or they just have to completely ignore their Atlas and never have an Atlas until they play solo. So. But yeah, it does, like, the fact that this is so good co-op, it makes me wish that maybe at some point they go back and do something with the Conquerors and the Cyrus Atlas and things to make that work much better for party play as well. Because, I mean, I guess I can see why being able to feed other people Watchstones is, like, a little problematic, but does it really matter that much? I would love to see
more. Like, before it was a problem, but now it's like, whatever.
Yeah, it would be, it'd be great.
Already tradable.
True. Yeah, we have tradable Watchstones, literally. That's true.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
You can just buy your full Awakener Atlas. So I mean, the ideal change from GG it would be to make it so that whenever you had your Conqueror proc, as long as their Atlas met the conditions for that to happen as well, then it would proc for them, and then each time you did that map, it would proc each, you know, step on their Atlas thing, and then you could fight the thing together. Even if necessarily you had to like do both of your fights, so you had to open it in your hideout and then open it in their hideout and do both, which is what you do with the Maven. That would be fine, as long as the actual like tagging for the, you know, you've witnessed them invading your map each time occurred in party play would be fantastic.
I mean, there's an argument to be made that it's beneficial. You get an extra Drox, means an extra chance at a Warlord Exalt or an Awakened Gem. And once you get to higher tiers, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're getting like twice as much Maven loot effectively for playing in a party from the Maven bosses because we get to do it twice each time, 1 for each player. So that's pretty sweet.
But you can, but this, but you still need the invitation.
Well, they both get the invitation, so it's a quest item drop, right? Earlier.
Well, so right, but until the 10, when it's the random drop, then you would only ever get the 1.
Rare, it's I guess a different game. We're just kind of getting up to that point now.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
you could
really good progressing.
You could buy one of the second invitation that you need if you don't happen to drop it. in the course
Sure.
of the maps.
Sure. But you're not just doubling the amount
Yes.
at endgame, which
I think-
is
I think as long as far as like Atlas progression stuff in co-op goes, as long as you don't get like locked at a pre-end of the mechanic state,
yes.
co-op's fine. Like it can take, as long as it takes you to the 10 bosses with co-op friendliness, then that's fine, I think. Because then there's like you're there,
Yep.
you know, they can do their things, you can do their things. It doesn't matter if it's not duplicated at that point. You don't need to dupe everything.
You just
Yeah,
you don't want the
but-
system that we had with the old shaped atlas, where it's like you're playing with your friend, and then you look at your atlas and realize I have nothing, and then
Yeah.
you have to do everything on theirs, and the second they're offline, you're screwed.
I
Um,
haven't played on trade for so long. Do you actually get? Because I was like recalling to the last time I played, and there was like you don't get map complete. Do you actually get map completions now?
That's
On trade?
that's one of the things you do get. So in a party you get map completion bonuses. So if you complete a corrupted
Right.
red
Okay, good.
check done for their Atlas quantity bonus and whatnot, and you also discover citadels, weirdly enough, together.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
yeah, so that gets you that like initial little bit started, but then none of the
Oh,
Conqueror.
right. But then none of the other stuff works together.
Yeah.
That is kind of odd.
Yeah, it's a bit super awkward. So Amy basically like gets on in the evening and is like, I'm catching up on Watchstones. Like go and farm a bunch of Conquerors.
From the SSF and the trade point of view, Octavian, Raiz, Niggy, have you found it meshing in with the Syrah system?
I love it.
Yeah, it's.
Right.
I mean, I've been really unable to focus on any given thing, so I feel like my progress has been impeded. But that's like in a good way. Like I've had all these different things I want to progress. I don't have all my watchstones collected yet, and I've progressed Maven to 10 bars or whatever you want to call it in every single zone because I enjoyed doing the Maven fights way more than progressing the Conqueror system because it's new and shiny. And then also I pushed Delve a little bit, and also I've been doing heists, and all my rogues are at level 4 or 5 now. So I have all these different things that I've been working on. It feels like I, got a huge bucket of Legos, and I've been building 4 or 5 different castles out of them, and none of them are complete yet.
Yeah. That pretty much mirrors my experience.
Yep. Same thing here. It's so interesting to be able to do so many different things because I thought there was a pretty real chance that they're just gonna scrap Conquerors and like go with something else or like build on it in some way, but it's like a completely separate system, which was another point of confusion where GG did state that it's completely separate. Like your watchstones don't impact Maven in any way or anything like that. You do need like the 4 to get the higher bosses, but that's about the extent of it. And yeah, it's been really enjoyable, especially again from a SSF point of view where you just constantly have something to do. Like in different regions, there's
So
more
much. There's like I want to say there's a really high ceiling to the end game grind now, but honestly, it feels more like there isn't a ceiling anymore. Like there's just the sky up there in terms of how much you can do. Like you can grind to the point where you replace every watchstone that you collect through the Sire's grind with platinum or chromium watchstones. And then at that point, you can grind tons of alts to roll them for the perfect mods, and then you have your Atlas set up to farm exactly what you want to farm. It's just it's never ending, which
and
is
then
scary.
and then Harvest and then Maven Orb and then Conqueror Orbs and everything. It's like
You get down to like the nitty gritty of it, and you talk about what you can do with even just a single item in terms of time and currency investment, and with, as you said, Maven Orbs and T0 mods, you can take one item and make that a month-long project.
Yeah.
I can't believe how much effort they put into the Maven Orb, to be honest. I kind of thought that it's like another tier, like some sort of throwaway thing, but they
That's great.
thought out a lot of the system, and the mods are really impactful.
There's
It's
one
really interesting.
There's one that I really want to try and get for a chieftain build at some point in the future, which is the elevated version of physical damage taken as fire, which causes you to recover, I think it's 8% of fire damage that you took as life.
That's good.
Well, also still giving you Fizz taken as fire, and then
That's
Chieftain
good, yeah.
got its Fizz taken as fire buffed, and then you have, the helmet craft too, and you can, you can get a lot out of that.
Wow,
A lot of mileage
yeah.
out of that.
That's pretty cool.
First self-ignite build, damn.
Lightning
Pretty cool.
coil on Suicide Watch. Jesus, that's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's cool stuff like you can get consecrated ground that like lingers on you when you upgrade it from
Oh, that's a big one.
Mm.
That's
whatever it
insane.
is
It's
from
like
the drug
Inquisitor.
fund. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
literally Inquisitor, except the linger effect is like 2 seconds. And then like
okay.
explode, you can push explodey chest to 5%, and it gets like 15% AoE or something as
So it's just
well. It's like,
insane.
damn.
I'm curious how this is mostly aimed at Nugiyen and Raiz, how you feel about all this stuff, because you often end up resetting your leagues for like random events and gauntlets and all this other stuff. Like, how do you feel about just having like all of these crazy progression systems and then like being people who chain restart leagues often?
Give me more. Honestly, like the whole chain restarting is an effect of there not being enough to do.
Right.
That's why we do it. It's not because we're like, oh, we just want to do it all the time. It's because we're searching for new things to do. Because it's interesting. Because going through the Atlas is an interesting progression.
Mhm.
When progression stops, then we're searching for new progression. So if the progression doesn't stop on the Atlas, well, then we don't have to. And honestly, the resetting a lot, I mean, that's from an old racing community as well. And it's not the main focus of PoE. It never has been. I mean, it was for a while, I guess, one of the main focuses. But in recent years, at least, it's like it's more of a side project that is being supported to some extent, which is really interesting and fun. And there's a great community around it. But I mean, I want them to do more of this. It's basically through all the years, I've always wanted them to make it so that we could decide how we would address the Atlas in terms of like, oh, I want to craft now. I want to do Elvis now. Like now I can actually do Elvis and feel like it's the first time in how many years since I've wanted to do Elvis missions, and I feel like I'm getting rewarded for doing Elvis missions. And I'm feeling just so excited about it.
Hell, there's options to target invasion bosses.
Yeah. You get some text and stack those up.
Weird stuff, and weird stuff is great. I love it. The side effect of it is you get situations like the elevated sextant plus imprint effect, where you have these two systems colliding in an unintended way, and I feel like that's kind of inevitable with this many tools suddenly thrown at us. But yeah, I think it's worth it. Absolutely.
I feel like those are easier things to target though, because that has to do with like mapping currency system or currency items, right? That's where all this is being generated through, like the heists and the maps and the fractures and the deliriums, and it's all those things interacting, and they can always fix that by just stopping some of the interactions.
Yeah.
No, and then you just have to find more instead.
I think it's absolutely worth.
Thing is too that the Conqueror system was boring as fuck. Like it by itself is actually repetitive, annoying, and it doesn't accomplish anything. As much as like sextant blocking was frustrating, Elder Rings were annoying, influence was annoying in a lot of ways, there was a lot to do with those systems. Shaping maps, controlling your Atlas, removing maps from your Atlas. Like there was a lot to think, a lot to do, and a lot to manage in like whatever time frame you gave yourself. But with Conquerors, I mean, you get 4 Watchstones, you're done. Like that's pretty much the extent of where you needed to push it. There were systems like maybe you want to farm residence map. Ooh, it's like comparing that to the old systems, there just wasn't a whole lot to do. But now you've got like a million choices of like what should you prioritize at what moment, and that makes those league resets so much more exciting again. And it's by far the most complex thing that we've ever had, especially when you start including like having 4 Watchstones and manipulating those and all that. I like it a lot.
The flip side of it, though, that I really like is that a lot of these benefits are passive, permanent ones. The craftable Watchstones, the Atlas points, and all that, which means that while you do have the option to min-max the hell out of a certain thing and like try and chase, value from invasion bosses, for instance, not maybe the best option, but you could. If you wanted to min-max in a certain direction, you can. You also can just like Al can go. And if you have 4 moderately crafted Watchstones in an area, and it's like the area that gives you it's Valdo's Rest, for instance, and so you get like 7 extra Harbies, it doesn't matter. You just Al can go and you get like basically a full invested map for the price of an Al and a map. So if you're not the kind of person who loves to min-max, just throw some maps into Valdo's Rest with a few crafted watchstones for the rest of the league and don't think about it.
Yep.
So
I do think in terms of if you look at the old atlas and the new, I think the Congress Atlas was actually an important step to getting to where we are now, though, because the what's it called, the where you put the 4 things in, what are
The
Citadels?
4 things in.
the Citadels, right? They simplified the section system, and they managed that system so much better, and it made you able to kind of customize your atlas in a way that was like much smarter, rather than you having to like remove add maps from the atlas, add in them back, and then section to this region. So like before, if we had the old atlas system before the Conqueror system, and then we added this new stuff on top, it wouldn't work as well, right?
Absolutely.
So it was more like it was something that had to happen to make the whole section system and the atlas function better, and then they could add all the interesting stuff back on top.
On the topic of Conquerors, though, I think this was in the doc, and we hadn't really touched on it.
Go for
How
it.
do we feel about Cyrus? Like the mobs and him showing up. Not the fight, but him in maps.
I mean, we can also talk about the fact that it's like, hi, I'm Cirrus, and laser sideways.
Oh yeah, he's a little bugged.
When is he not bugged?
I was not fond of it before the nerf. After the nerf, it's like all right.
It's still pretty rippy after the nerf.
I actually haven't done it. I dodged it entirely. I'm like, people are like, everybody's just keeps dying on the ladder. I'm like, where are these people dying? And I keep getting these clips of people like dying instantly with 20k HP or something. I'm like, oh, you know what? I won't get 16 watchstones. Thank you very much.
One thing that really seems strange to me about the system is that you hit this wall of Cyrus death when you reach the watchstones needed to summon him to maps in the first place, because he's guaranteed to show up in the first influence proc for all 4 conquerors, and then after that he barely ever shows his face. So it's like you have this big brick wall in front of the endgame content, and people are running 50 miles an hour and they just hit that. If they manage to get through, they're fine. There's not really much ahead of them anymore, but most people fall over.
I think they should flip it so that whenever you have 8 awakening bonus, he should show up more.
Yeah.
And 9 should maybe be like pretty like
why he shows up initially there, because they want to introduce you to the mechanic and say, here, this can happen.
Right.
Good luck. But the intention I think is good, but in practice, what it just feels backwards. That you hit a wall midway through your progression, and then it gets easier as you get to more watchstone count.
Yeah.
They should have handled him more like...
I don't think they should have the infected mobs early on. I think they should only spawn at higher levels. Or something.
Is there
like
an
that.
upside to it? Like, does it actually give you anything?
It gives you more influence loot and stuff.
Yeah, way more influence bases. The rares have
really?
a 50% chance to drop.
Very noticeable. Very noticeable.
Tons.
It's good.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, because I think what they did is they realized that when they first made Conquerors, they're a bit of a cram. They kind of rushed Cirrus in. That Cirrus always felt kind of tacked on, because you're slowly introduced to all these other Conquerors. They're taunting you. You interact with them and like, hey, dude, stop chasing me. And they're like, no, seriously, go away. And they're like, fine, I'm gonna mess you up then. And then you fight them. So they were like, okay, how can we do that for Cirrus? We'll just introduce Cirrus in. What they should have done is they should have treated it more like how they do Delirium, where it's like he just turns up and he just taunts you, and then he maybe like he will like randomly like pop in and watch some of your fighting the other Conquerors. Like that would have made a lot of sense. Him just kind of being like, okay, I can see what you're up to, and then
I love the way that it's done.
He can.
I love the way they've done it. Because you're like pestering all the Conquerors. They're like, yeah, stop bullying me. And then he shows up alongside Baran. Baran's like talking to you. He's about to do his monologue. And then Cyrus shows up and he's like, oh shit, Exile, you done fucked up. Cyrus noticed you. And then he comes up for Alhazmin and like Alhazmin's like, oh, he's so damn cool. Like the lines they say when he shows up is great. I think it's great.
Where he's just like, what the hell did you do to piss off Cyrus?
See, it makes sense too, because like it turns you into the mob. Like they're the Conquerors, they're the big exiles, you're the mob now to them. Like thematically, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that I wasn't seeing the Cirrus influence mobs anymore, because I've only done one Cirrus fight, just like the Cirrus, like the first Cirrus fight. And yeah, now I'm redoing my Atlas and stuff. Yeah, I haven't seen Cirrus once. So.
He's very, very rare after you get the first round of guaranteed spawns. Like I see his influence in maps maybe twice on a full cycle of respawning him.
See, but that explains everything then, because I kept like whenever people died to the Cirrus mobs and they'd be in my chat, I'd be like, but like, how does this work and how does this work? And every time the answer would be the same. It would be always, I died in my first map. Like, I don't know how it works. Like, it was always the first map that they did with him that it would kill him every time. Like, maybe seconds, you know? I was like, oh, shit.
I actually thought it spawned on the first. I actually thought it spawned on the first time you would influence on a new store, like all the time, also after. So I've been like making really easy maps. Afterwards, after I spawned on the first, but he never shows up anymore. I was so confused because I thought I had figured out the system, but apparently I didn't.
Nah, he can just show up in any influence map.
Yeah.
The thing that's really killer about them is the speed. Like they go at turbo monster speed even through Toxic Rain. It's disgusting.
They are quick. They're very quick. Yeah, I even post nerf. I got chased by one dude, and I'm like, I just need to try and get some distance, and I was on my lightning trapper. And it turns out, slight drawback of throwing traps is when the mob is the flash, he doesn't care. Because he'd be like, haha, and then I was like, So I would run, and then I'd throw, and then he'd get back to him like, So there's just lots of me running, and then I was having to throw traps in front of me, and then run, so he would follow me into the trap, which is an interesting way of doing it. Yeah.
It's like you're actually playing a trap off once.
Yeah, it's actually like going into the proper trapping thing of like, we'll lay the bear traps in advance. Since we kind of talked around it a lot, is there anything that you would still change about the Maven system, or is it just the invitation splinter stuff?
Not really. I like everything except the invites. I mean, I like in general, this entire patch has been a much more positive surprise, especially the Atlas stuff. Like, I really wasn't excited about the passives, but it worked out so much better than I thought it would. So, no complaints from me for once.
Nothing major. It's really good. Yeah.
I think in terms of Maven, like balance wise, the healing and stuff might be a bit much.
It's the worst thing. Like, if you play a penance build, it's like your penance builds up for 4 seconds and then she goes absorb and it explodes for 4 million damage, except it doesn't do anything because she absorbs all of it. It's like, what the fuck? And then you do it again and it comes off cooldown and she does it again and you can't kill the fucking boss. Oh my god.
So I don't mind the fact that you have to counter certain mechanics. It just gets old when the only thing you counter is if it's just like a heal mechanic and you have to always have a frost bomb. I mean, if there's like a varying amount of like things you should counter and they were like maybe a little bit rare and not as spammy, I mean, sure, give me that. But
I would also say that like frost bomb isn't even a counter, because as far as I'm concerned, if you're making a video game with like, oh, we'll have this to counter that, if the counter is be an occultist or use frostbomb to disable the mechanic, that isn't countering. That's just turning it off. Like, that isn't a good counter.
No, that is a counter.
It's not.
Here we go.
That might not be interesting enough for you, but
okay. We might have like a big like philosophy debate there. That isn't.
I mean, that is a counter.
No, that's okay. It's.
Any Pokemon players?
Somebody talk about socks. Get him distracted.
Okay, but it'd be, again, saying Pokemon, it'd be the equivalent of being like, okay, you have a fire Pokemon, I have a water Pokemon. You could train your fire Pokemon abilities, which are still strong against water. But the way this system works is like, no, I have water Pokemon, I automatically win. Because I just turned off your Pokemon, because I have Frostbomb. Like, that isn't good design. just being like,
Sounds like a counter to me.
fuck off. It's
I'd count
you have
even.
to admit though, it is bad design to be like, we
There's
have this
nothing-
mechanic which is
No,
healing.
we're not
and the
designing, we're
only
not talking about the quality of it, the design. We're just talking whether or not it, you know.
What counters what rock paper
Counter.
scissors?
it's a switch, not a counter, exactly.
Hmm.
But you have to admit, it's not good design that they've put in this hard healing mechanic, and the only workaround is have so much damage that you one-shot it before the healing, or use the skill that just disables the mechanic. It doesn't dampen it. If Frostbomb was like less healing effect or limited healing, that would be more interesting. Instead, it's just no mechanic. That is bad.
It does come at a cost, you know. Most builds can't just like, here's a socket. Well, a lot of builds, but I play a lot of clicky builds, so I never bother with the Frostbomb, even though I'm aware of its presence. So, to me, the cost is too great, Tarke.
I've had builds before that were a little slow in maps with like super healy rares, like with double regen auras and stuff in the past, where it's like, oof, I'm really happy I have a Frostbomb right now. I don't know. The PoE doesn't have a lot of these mechanics. It's kind of like down to only Frostbomb. That's like the only kind of mechanic of this sort I feel like we have. So it's awkward that it's being utilized to this degree.
I will say, when the 100% thing, a cultist is at 100%, Frostbomb is 75. Yeah.
I mean, it feels so. The thing is, I don't have a look at Reflect as well, right? That is their counter to you. The same thing as like healing is a counter to low damage build. It's kind of a counter to low damage builds at this point. But you get my point. Is that Reflect is fine because there's a way to work around it, either with you becoming immune to Reflect, you figuring out another way to deal damage. You know, you have to overcome this obstacle. So in rare cases, I have no problem with Reflect being there, like for instance on the dog or on the mirror of a theory.
But using
the dog.
Did you see Terrence's rip though?
Yes, and I was just about to point that out. Like that is a little bit of a
little.
That's
bit.
where that's where you're overlapping places where you take the uniqueness out of a certain place and you just apply it randomly somewhere else, and it gets weird.
For anyone who doesn't know what they're talking about, Hardcore streamer had a very unfortunate death. He was doing the Maven fight. The actual Maven fight summons in random bosses. You don't choose what boss she summons in. And it was the race course Reflect. And it instantly spawned in with Reflect, so he instantly killed himself.
Yeah. That sucks.
Pretty fair,
Yeah.
in my book.
Pretty fair. Very fair.
Sounds like a good mechanic.
Should have just counterplayed.
Should have brought Frostbomb.
Countered it.
Yeah.
No, but I do agree with Noogie that in that case it just gets like mumbo jumboed, you know, there's just too much.
Yeah.
Like it's not intended to work that way, but I don't know. I don't like thorns and everything. It's kind of a relic at this point. I wasn't even much of a Reflect hater. Everybody was like, take Reflect out of the game. I thought it worked, you know? Controlled all those Flame Blast DD builds that were so OP. But then, the game changed a lot. So now it's just kind of weird.
I do think, just from like a design point of view, it's kind of weird that they added healing as a mechanic. It's the kind of it's the weird double speak that ZiggyD does sometimes, where it's like, we're gonna slow down the game, we're gonna do all these things. You're like, okay, cool,
right?
And then, so what's this new system? Basically, if you don't instantly kill this boss, it's gonna heal. So if you're playing a really slow tanky build, and the entire game incentivizes you playing fast, because the faster you play, the better you are at every league mechanic.
But that's why things like Frostbomb are important, I think, because I think they're afraid of a situation where people are going to feel like this is the comeback of like immunities or something like that.
Right. And
that would be pretty bad, you know, where you kind of need to have this like hard counter, so you can always point it out when somebody's like, Quinn can't kill Oak. You can just always be like, what about Frostbomb?
I'm planning on making an occultist build at some point this league, so I can entirely bypass that mechanic. So maybe it's a good system. If I want to play an occultist now. I don't know.
I mean, what would you guys feel about like more debuff systems in PoE2 where you have like more gems, right? Having certain you know, like the Frostbomb has its thing. You could have like maybe Wave of Conviction can have its thing. You know, like right now it's like it's just debuffs is just like either daily deal less damage or you deal more. You know, you could
That's what I was
add more
thinking
interesting systems to, you know, to healing or to, you know, speed, or I mean we do have that with chill, but I mean you could elaborate on the system is what I'm trying to say in PoE2, because you could have space for the all these different mechanics on
Oh yeah,
your
even
on
like
your spells.
expanding on ailments in that way. I was thinking
Yeah.
earlier where like a boss is really fiery and you're dealing cold damage, so like naturally your thing like counters his thing. But then yeah, I would be afraid of like immunities and imbalances in that way. Would be interesting to see though. Maybe it would work. I don't know. As like a balance mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to that one boss in AQ that's immune to cold damage. This giant slime.
Yeah.
Raiz knows what I'm talking about. Octavian doesn't know what I'm talking about.
AQ.
Yeah. Classic WoW references. Let's go. Oh, he requires cold damage. Sorry, yeah, he. You can only do cold damage to him. It's been a while. It's been a while.
It's been like 20 years. I don't remember any of
Yeah.
this.
When it comes to those kind of systems, it's always I don't like the thing where it's like I want to play because part of the appeal of PoE is I'm gonna make this really stupid niche build, and it's like I'm gonna play a stun build. My whole build is a stun. Quinn, by the way, haha. And then you get the mob who's like, cannot be stunned, and you're like, I guess my build is just trash for this. So yeah, I generally think immunities are bad in video games. Having it where you are incentivized to play around the immunity, good. But when it's just like, and your build is bricks, it's just not fun.
I think in niche cases, when it comes to bossing and becomes to unique encounters, if there's enough variance in and around the game, it's fine to have some. I like at Siri, for instance, I think the Reflect works perfectly fine there, and you literally have builds who are like, you will never run at Siri because you will never be able to kill her. She will always get you before you get her, just like that. If you don't do anything to change up your fight,
I mean,
like there are just certain things where certain builds just won't function against certain things, and then you make something that's better against it, and it's in the nature of an ARPG, I think.
That
So long as that stuff can't jump out and surprise you.
yeah.
As long as that
Sure.
stuff can't jump out and surprise you while you're doing regular core content.
Yeah.
I think there's a very big difference between one specific boss having one specific mechanic, which you have to plan around, than just a random mob you encounter in a map.
Well, the thing is too that the PoE system doesn't support it. Like,
Yeah.
in D2, you naturally build your characters around the fact that there are immunities, and some things you just accept that immunities exist and you can't like do anything about it. But in PoE2, you know, when it's not a matter of like entirely switching out your setup, but instead like a single gem or already having that gem, I can see them doing some things with that, you know? Like, what's the purpose of having 11 six links or whatever it is? I mean, is that realistically going to come into play? Like, why are we going so overboard with these systems? It's never really going to happen. I mean, maybe they are going to build around it in some way, but I can't imagine like that being that meaningful. So maybe they're going to create something where that will have a bigger impact for like one button builds.
I mean, in all reality, you're gonna have movement skill still, aura still, clear skill, single target skill, maybe like a big cast and damage taken, some like fat utility, like the equivalent of like a frost shield or a sigil of power, because they're pushing skills like that. Maybe like a Val skill. Like, that's not me being crazy, and that's 7.
Huh?
And you could easily push
7
that
you
more.
could choose. Yeah.
Like you could then add like a totem if you had like a withered totem or ancestral war
Like
chief.
that's
Or, like,
what you've already
But
got, and
you're like I feel like the
doesn't need
way
to be
you're
6 months.
approaching the way you're like thinking about PoE2 is that everything stays like the way you're going to play will just be the same, and the way you're going to approach it is like using the same type of utility. I think that's kind of like underselling how much they could actually do with it if they really wanted to.
someone
I
made
think
a
that's
really
I think it's dangerous to like try and negate everything that they could open up for just because we already have all these things we're doing now. But what we're doing now is just because it's the most efficient that we've figured out so far.
Yeah, but are they going to be like, here's supports to have 6-link movements?
Nah.
Like,
I
they
mean,
realistically
like that? Oh,
easily,
maybe.
you can quite easily already like dash, Arcane Surge, Second Wind, Enhance. You can shove an Empower. Like that's 5. Like even just being like dash, Second Wind, Enhance, Arcane Surge. Like that isn't crazy. Like if you had the links to afford that, you'd run a 4-link dash.
Power enhanced dash.
what the fuck?
Like,
More interestingly, they could do contextual buffs that you can choose between that you can have on things like movement skills, where like when you use your movement skill, it'll apply this buff, and you have a bunch of different choices like that.
hang on, can I just say,
Yeah, but that's where
because
this shit
chat
sucks.
is seriously cringing. Am I the only person who likes to run Enhance on dash? I don't feel like that's a weird thing to do.
No, I don't think you're.
Like,
what do you get exactly? Is it cooldown reduction?
yeah.
Reduction? Yeah, it's great. If you have the gem spaces, you would totally run that.
See, I hate stuff like that because it's like a tiny difference that seems mandatory due to like the design of PoE. So shit like that would just be annoying. It's the same way how you had to build characters around stacking as many reduced mana gems on your sockets as possible. Like it's mandatory, you have to do it. It's just so annoying. At least in that case it was impactful, but here it would be like like, do I really want to upgrade my character through getting a 6-link dash? Like, I don't know.
No, but like in that case, you would have multiple things like built into it. So it might be a case of like, you have a dash plus a smoke mine, and that is your like 6-link movement skill, but it's like 2 skills 4-linked or like 2 skills 5-linked. And even in the case of just like like when everyone used to run like culling faster attacks.
I don't think
and
that
stuff.
works anymore. That wouldn't work, right? Because the gems themselves are the links now.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah. So you wouldn't be able to support.
It would. No. You have there are new meta gems which allow you to support multiple gems by the same setup,
yes.
I believe.
Yes, you're right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So that exists.
Oh, cool.
I
don't know. Maybe I'm underselling it. Hopefully they're going to come up with something cool for that.
We're very much getting lost in the source, I feel like, when we're speculating about PoE2 gem changes. So to bring it back, we've spoken about Ritual, we've spoken about Echoes. If we just talk a little bit about Harvest Heist and then Ascendancy changes, and then I think we just round up and we're done.
Yeah, I want to talk about Harvest actually, because I was really excited about Harvest coming back. I freaking love Harvest crafting so much. And when we're talking about like, oh, how would Harvest go core? I was talking a lot about different ways of like integrating those crafts into the game in other manners. Like maybe when you kill a boss, it has a chance to add one of the Harvest style crafts to your crafting bench and things like that. And then when I saw how they were going to implement Harvest to the game, I was like, yeah, this is all right as far as the like, less overhead effort of them implementing it. It's like, yeah, they've kind of done away with a lot of the garden stuff. It's low management. They don't have to like redesign this whole crafting system and implement core. It should work fine. I was even kind of in favor of the like 10 crafts thing, but I'll get to that in a sec, I guess. But I kind of hate it. Unfortunately, I feel like it interrupts your gameplay so much now, far worse than before. Because before you were kind of like just tagging the things in your maps and didn't interrupt your mapping at all, and then you would go do all your harvests as a separate thing. But now, especially playing in a party, if you're playing in a party and the other person finds their garden, you're like, well, I guess I'll just stand around in the map for 10 minutes, or I'll go do something else. I'll go farm some heists or something like that. So it's extremely interrupting of the gameplay now. And even if you're solo, like you're getting taken out of your map for a few minutes or 5-10 minutes potentially.
I would agree with that.
I don't know if that's grating on anyone else.
No, I'd agree with that.
I'm from my perspective, I'm the opposite in terms of my enjoyment.
But
I
do you
think
not
it's the
feel like
greatest
the
thing.
flow is very like forced?
I mean, you have to take advantage of it. Like you're kind of forced into taking advantage of it. So it's
Yeah,
like
you can't
if
like
you.
leave it.
The thing is, I think a lot of people are just they're not willing to give anything up. So whenever and that might just be me, my personality that kind of fits this playstyle better. But if you don't want to like if you're running the harvest zone all the time and then you get frustrated that you can't have like that you don't have your items prepared, well then you should. I think people are not willing to go and prepare their items to so that whenever they go in to the harvest farm that they are then ready with the stuff they want. Because I found myself in that situation where I just didn't have the items I needed, so I had to like just throw away a lot of good stuff. But I think you kind of have to have it that way because otherwise it can't be as powerful and impactful if it's just always that good.
The problem is too that we like know the system, and so often I caught myself in a situation where I was like, man, I remember I was able to do something really cool with this craft, but I can't quite remember what. And then it would click, and I'd be like, wow, this is fucking so insane, Harvest OP. But then, figuring that stuff out on the go, I can see Harvest feeling very unimpactful for somebody who's not familiar with the system. It's like removes non-something. It's like, well, this doesn't do anything, but in reality, it like could be the most useful thing for them, or it guarantees a mod that they need and all this. So I personally really like it, but I think I have a very skewed opinion because of having played Harvest. And I also like how much of a mix, like as much as it's annoying to scroll through all the crafts, and that was one of my biggest problems with Harvest, even when you were stacking seeds. I do like kind of like the variety of what kind of monsters you get on a single fight. That's been really enjoyable. You've got like 2 tier 4 guys or like a bunch of T3s and everything, and it that really helps the then really long crafting session a lot of the times. So and that way it doesn't break it up as much for me, but I can see that being a problem for people for sure.
I think from my point of view, so I was very worried about Harvest going core because I didn't think Harvest was good for the game. I've enjoyed Harvest, and I've been like having items pre-prepared. So I've got like, this is my Chaos Ami for when I get Chaos things. This is my Lightning thing for when I get Lightning things, and I've had it for like multiple builds ready that I've known. But I do completely agree with Ziggy that it is one of those things where it reminds me a lot of the old Ulva. You know how when it was you were forced, you had to do the temple then during the league, Incursion League, and you're like, I really don't actually want to do a temple this second. That's the main thing I would agree with Ziggy, where it's sometimes you're like, I just want to finish this map, and it's like, there's that harvest, I need to go deal with that now, and there is no delaying that. Like, it's you have to do that now, and that is something that I think will irritate people with time.
That's gonna get changed. Like I can almost guarantee that like a separate storing of the harvest is going to occur because it's too big of a problem that people have to do harvest with map mods and all that stuff. Like it's gonna be another Cortex situation where eventually it's gonna overflow and people are gonna be like, oh yeah, why don't you bring back the thing where it was like a separate instance? So
you think the map mod? Wait.
Yeah, because you were able to like if you completed your harvest preparation or whatever, you didn't have to do it in the map. You could just create a separate garden instance that didn't have any
if you
map
get
mods.
Heart of the Grove now, you get all the map mods and everything on it.
Yeah, I know. It's really difficult.
Like I don't mind the 10 craft limit. I think the 10 craft limit is fine, and I guess the worry is that if you let players stockpile their harvest, then you effectively bypass the limit because you just stockpile them. But I think if you could maybe if you could like tag, like you see the harvest, you like speak to Shabi, and then it stores that one zone, like how you can have
that idea.
Like how you store one incursion temple, like it's. You do this temple when you want to do it, but you can't get any more progression until you run it. I think that would be a really good middle ground. Because it's one of those situations of you store it, you can't get any more harvest ones until you deal with that one, and then you do it when you want to do it. So if you're in a case of, I just want to get this map done, or I just want to get like 2 bosses or whatever, then you can finish what you want to do, and then you go do that.
I
They'll
think
do
that
that.
would be a great idea.
I mean, I guess I've just been being like kind of wasteful this whole league because the way I've been dealing with the annoyance of having to spend a lot of time in Harvest is I just have a short list of like 4 or 5 crafts that I really want for projects I have going, and I kind of just ignore everything else that is
Yes.
a direct currency trade or like a div card gamble.
Mm.
Like I just don't bother using any of the reforges or the res swaps or the divines or any. I just let it wither and leave.
But even for the short list, you had to develop it, right? Like you weren't planning on doing that.
I
Like,
yeah, I mean it's a
easier.
short list of things for projects for my current character. So like those are the
Yeah.
things I'm targeting.
But is that
And
really
you
a bad
definitely
thing?
skipped out some things.
I haven't disliked it. I can certainly see Ziggy's point of view. For someone who isn't, for someone who wants to squeeze all the value out of it, which I think is a perfectly fine way to approach the mechanic, I can see it being
Yeah.
very annoying.
I hate the 10 crafting limit.
I
And it's not even because like I want more power creep through having access to more things. It's just that it removes a lot of the things that I really loved Harvest for, which is I cannot afford to have change fire resistance to lightning resistance. I just can't afford to have it. Like there's only 10, I can't use it. Or like use 10 chance orbs, or even use, fusings or something like that. None of the, or like change the colors to the opposite of like what you're supposed to get. Like those are really cool things that aren't incredibly powerful, that are like have a very functional use and feel great about Harvest that now you cannot like utilize. Like you just can't.
I can
100%
completely
limited
agree with
20
that.
ain't gonna work.
The 10 craft limit completely guts a lot of really good crafts that you just can't justify keeping. That's
Yeah.
100%.
That is
Yeah.
something that I run into. My first Harvest was all change resistance to another resist, change colors, and I'm like, yes, Pog, and I stored all of them. And then my next Harvest I got was like augments, remove, add, upgrade, and I'm like, delete, 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 and then
Yep.
and then I was like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, feels bad, man.
Yeah. But I do like there being a limit. I guess one argument I have seen on Reddit, because there's been a bit of a talk about this, and I do agree with it, because we're coming at this from an SSF point of view. The limit, in a way, technically only limits SSF players, because the Trade League players can use the Discord to get whatever they want anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
And also, if you're playing SSF, just the thing, I had like a random amulet, right? I had some remove, add stuff. I was thinking, okay, I'm just going to gamble now. And I used some like really high-end stuff. It bricked, but it was really fun doing it. Right? Like you don't always have to just delete. Just use it on anything. Just
no, but you're not gonna do that with like cold to, if you're like, because Raiz was talking about storing cold to lightning res for changing future gear.
That.
You're not gonna be like, oh, let's just quickly YOLO all of our resistances on our gear for bans. Like,
no, I feel like you're underestimating the power of these. Like you're making it so that these are just like
they're strong, but like again, and likewise the case of, oh, let's change my blue socket to red socket. I'm not gonna be like, you know what? Let's just change my colors. Let's just mix things up on my build. Turn all my blues to reds.
No, but then those are also the more common crafts, so you'll find them later.
Yeah,
you will find them later. And so if you really need to swap this will be something that will spawn. Like Harvest is all about long-term goals, I feel. And taking away all the long-term goals, I think, is kind of I don't know. It's nice to have in PoE.
A fairly predictable problem with Harvest crafting coming back into the game that I still have felt pretty keenly is that Harvest crafting so incredibly overshadows any other method of progression with an item that's in a decent state but not finished yet, that I have like 7 projects that I have no other means of progressing, and they're just kind of sitting there. So if I want to craft, I have to get started on a new thing and a new thing and a new thing, and I just have to keep stalling with these other things, and it starts to feel a little unfun.
Yeah, but like, what would you do with those items if Harvest wasn't a thing?
I would gamble on them. Like I have a few things where they're pretty good. Like there are 2 of the mods that I need, but they don't have the 3rd one yet. And with Harvest, I can guarantee the 3rd one. So even though a gamble would have decent odds of getting me what I need, why the hell would I gamble when I can just wait for Harvest?
You also keep in mind that
Okay, yeah.
we're talking about chaos dot builds. This is a complaint I made during Harvest. For chaos dot builds specifically, Harvest is you just guarantee best in slot because it's so unbelievably easy for some builds. Like Harvest is just like +2 Ami done, dot multi quiver done. Like you just get it like that. It's just a case of you need to grind it out first. So for that
like
particular build, it's something I've had now that I'm playing Toxic Rain. We probably have it for the same kind of slots where it's like, as soon as I get that, I just finish this item.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty predictable problem. I don't really think there's a way of making the puzzle piece of Harvest fit without this being the issue, because that is what Harvest is. Like that is its job. It's just, I feel like it's worth mentioning that in the course of doing that job, it does kind of cut away some of the other fun stuff. But it's so strong that it's worth it.
At this point, because Nugi said that like it's so powerful. Like, I don't know if it is. For like the very top end, does it realistically matter that your item is like 5 or 6 slot perfect versus the amount of stuff that we can generate with Watchstones and like the Atlas passives now? You can make some like pretty nutty stuff with a lot less effort. I mean, I see a Harvest once maybe, and that's just running the top left Harvest zone, the Hamlet. I see Harvest like maybe once every 6-8 hours. Compare that to probably getting about 100 like deafening instances in that time.
Yeah, but
I don't believe that you're being 100% truthful here. Either the system is borked because it's like, what is it, a 10% spawn chance?
5%.
And you're telling me, but you get the notes up there.
If you spec into it, if you spec into it, you're in that region.
Right?
So yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe I was.
So you're saying that you're getting a like you run 10 maps every 8 hours? That seems crazy.
Those
like on average, sometimes you get
rate at all. I don't know what it is, but I definitely get Harvest a lot more when I'm in white and yellow maps. I very rarely get it in reds.
So I have heard people talking about there might be a bug. So that might be something bugged with maybe some of this. That could be it. But like if you're on average getting a Harvest every 10 maps, that's like
absolutely not. There's no way. And I'm definitely not getting more of it in like Hamlet than other places. But I mean, it's a small sample size when you think about it realistically. So I can't tell if it's just RNG.
Go Octavian.
The thing that I definitely can't tell is
assert yourself. Go.
Yeah.
Those specifics aside, my point wasn't that I feel like Harvest invalidates all other crafting options entirely. I use essences and I use fractured items and alt spamming and I use, fossils as well and all these other items to get a good item going. But Harvest stalls any other crafting method at the mid tier. It's when I get an item that is, say a bow with 2 of the mods that I want and a bad lightning and a bad cold roll. Why would I ever beastcraft or annul that when I can use Harvest to guarantee what I want? Same thing goes for a chest piece. Same thing goes for a helmet. And Harvest is this wall in the middle of crafting that becomes the best viable option for almost every single project. And that starts to feel a little irksome eventually, because it feels like every crafting experience becomes the same.
So maybe the solution is to spread different crafting types out on more, like a more varied amount of content and not just all in Harvest at the end.
I think Harvest, unless it's fundamentally changed, inevitably causes this problem. You can put it on, you can you can make it rarer, you can make it more common, you can change when the problem crops up in the crafting process of items, but I think it inevitably causes it. And personally, though I bring up the issue, I think that it's worth the trade-off. I just also think it's worth mentioning.
That was my main complaint the whole time when I was anti-Harvest going core. So yeah, I agree with that completely.
That's why I asked you, Octavian, about like what would you do with those items regularly, and I don't know if it's not a matter of like literally taking the time to adjust, because it's definitely anti-fun that like you just have those items sitting. But I was behaving the same way, and at a certain point, I took the Nugi approach, where I took a bunch of my items and I took a bunch of my really high-end crafts, like literally like 8 out of the 10 that I had, and I bricked all of it. And I was okay with it. Like didn't work. I mean, didn't feel great because I had them stored for like pretty much the entire week. But it still functioned. Like I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So maybe it's a matter of like having enough time where eventually you realize that the same thing you do with Exalted Orbs on SSF. You don't like store 20 Exalted Orbs on SSF. You just click them. You just go boop, use it, and you move on. That's it. Hopefully it's gonna work out like that. I can't promise it, but maybe it's just a matter of time.
One thing I want to ask, because since you started talking about this, the chat is starting to fill with it. This is the elitist podcast ruining the fun of the casual thing. Do we think the current harvest occurrence rate is actually doing much for casuals? Because I don't know if it is. Because
Is
crafting generally doing a lot for casuals?
I think
mean, people normally just buy on trade, so it's hard to like. It takes time to learn crafting in general in PoE.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the point there. There's not like, it really depends on where you define casual, which is a whole goddamn podcast in its own right. But like,
one of the lesser podcasts would do that, Octavian. Don't worry, that's beneath our station as a 1%er.
Even just chaos reforges or life reforges and that sort of thing. I feel like that does a lot.
Yeah,
I feel like that's not talking about trying to get the crit rerolls that you need to perfect your hundreds and hundreds of DPS weapon. Just guaranteed chaos res on a belt like that. That's pretty nice. So yeah, I'd say it at least does as much as say fossils or essences do for the casual player.
And it's a much easier approach as well, because you don't need to go down and delve and get all the resonators and then pop them together in the right way. They're just there sitting there. You put the item in and you click a bunch of times and then an item pops out.
I think it's far too rare for that. I agree with Raiz. Like I've played 2 characters tonight, I need 2, and I've seen less than 10 harvests total, like groves, 100%.
Yeah, but like that's the thing too. Like,
and
I
you
think it's
only
useless
encounter
because even
it
if
in maps.
you see it, you don't get it. Like
Yeah.
it's such a difficult system to understand and like truly utilize. Like you might get some results that you want, but I feel like if somebody isn't really like invested or hasn't played Harvest before, it will be really hard to get like your bang for your buck. And I also definitely think that you're not getting a Harvest every 10 maps. Like, there's just no
100%.
way.
Yeah.
So you should try being annoyed by the interruption to your gameplay about Harvest, because you get them all the fucking time. We were getting it like every 10 minutes. We're like, oh shit, another Harvest. Sorry, I'm just gonna make a coffee.
There we go. That's the fix. Easy.
Well, maybe it's a matter of like maybe the descriptors are wrong, because sometimes it's like 5% additional chance and sometimes it's 5% chance. Maybe there's something wrong about that in the passives. If it's 5% additional chance of getting a harvest that already has 5% chance to spawn, then we're not talking about doubling. We're talking about never seeing it again.
You know what it is, Raiz? Loot seeds.
Loot seeds.
Return of the loot seeds.
I wouldn't be joking about that, honestly. This invitation thing got me, the tinfoil hats going on. It's in construction right now, dude. Something ain't right. And the fact that GG isn't addressing it when it's so apparent too. Loot seeds, dude.
Loot seeds.
It's coming.
Heist exists, by the way. That was another thing.
Heist is really weird. So I enjoyed Heist, and I was looking forward to doing a lot of Heist this league. Having the whole progression roadblock that I had for the first 4 days really soured me on it. It's still one of the best source of like uniques and currency in SSF. But as someone who enjoys Heist, that pissed me off. And now whenever I do Heist, I'm just kind of like salty about it. So yeah. Maybe I'll feel different in like a week or 2, but it really frustrated me having my progression just completely bugged out.
I like Heist, but I can see not wanting to do it every league at all. Just because of all that. Doing all the quests and getting them all leveled and all that stuff.
Oh, and also the quests. Why can't we store the bloody quests?
Yeah.
Like, bruh, like...
Yeah.
And not only that, like, with tab affinities,
Yep.
like, because this is my first triple league start since tab affinities, having tab affinities, but then having a separate stash that we can't affinity into Like, when the heist is a league mechanic that's like, it's already struggling. It's like being the unpopular kid at class trying to like, please pick me for the football team. Like, you're in a wheelchair. They're not going to pick you for the football team. You then have the issue of it screws up the affinity system. It then screws up this. It screws up it. Like, it has so many things going badly for it. And also, I'm going to say, just for the record, that I was the kid who never got picked for football, and I'm disabled IRL, so I can make that joke. So, yeah.
Great. And that reminds me of the greatest thing about Ritual. It fucking gives you cluster jewels. So now we can remove heist. Okay, remove it and give us alternative gems and all the replicas and just give it to Ritual. Pog champion. And one of the good ones, not the crappy ones, the good one. Talking about the good Pog champ.
But I'll never see my explosive grandpa again. You can't take Vendari away from me, man.
You know what? You know what I really want them to do? I want them to just take heist out of the cycle. Just take it out, take the rewards, put them somewhere else for a while, and then actually go and do something like they did with. I mean, people have been talking about the implementation of heist being a lot better, right?
Mm.
And also other league mechanics. Like I don't really get why they can't just take something bad out. There's so much to do right now in the game and just make it better. Improve it to the point where, you know, we can bring it back in a new form and it's not going to be the most annoying thing in the world to run anymore.
Explosive grandpa.
I like heist. I don't think it's as bad as people make out to, but it does have its problems, and it could have been out of the cycle for a league. They could have given it that one. They could have done a league out of the cycle. But yeah, the quest thing, like ignoring my bugs and everything, even if I had like 0 issues with the system, the affinities being balked and the quest items being stuck in your inventory and not be able to easily, like the way you get them from one character to another character, you gotta like go into a map, drop it on the floor, log over, like it's like
I've never tried to do that before.
So yeah, I had that issue. I actually accidentally lost some quests. So I saved 2 quests on my first character. I'm like, I'll do them later. And then on my new character I was playing, and I'd saved up 2 quests. I'm like, okay, let's just get all my quests done. And I was thinking, like, okay, so how can I get them from one character to another? I can't drop them in the stash. And then I'm like, oh, I'll just drop them in a map. I'll just drop them in Delve. So I went to Delve and I dropped the 2 of them, but I screwed up. I just dropped them in the Delve camp, not like in an Azurite node. So when I logged into my second character, it put me in a different instance, and I lost it, and I couldn't then log back. So I accidentally like just threw away a few quests. But it's fine.
Wait, can you do that on SSF?
Yeah, in SSF you can, if the actual like Azur, like if you're inside the actual Azurite area, you can like share instant stuff.
Oh, cool. That's useful for the Maven invites too, because I had that thing where I couldn't move them. Oh, okay. Thanks.
That's all right. But what about just putting them in the stash? Well, no, that's the point. We can't. If we could, that would be fine. But
doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay, Tarke.
This whole thing he was talking about for 15 minutes, you know.
Oh god, I didn't know you had your alt in chat, Raiz.
Just do it, bro.
Hey, last time it wasn't me. I think it was Nugi last time.
What?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, does anyone have anything else they want to say about heist? Otherwise, let's just do a little bit of build talk and finish up.
Fuck it.
Okay, so we like the new Deadeye. We like the new Inquisitor. Has anyone got like any crazy builds they're like desperate to play later on in the league? Or anything you've been really impressed by that you've seen other people doing?
Yeah, but it's not anything new.
You can still talk about it, Octavian.
So true.
So actually, earlier the Stormburst Castle channeling Crunchy Orb. I forget what it's called.
Crunchy Orb. No, that's the title, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crunchy. I said
Explosive grandpa.
I'm not good with names. No, the one you can target that we were talking about.
Hydrosphere.
Hydrosphere.
That.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
Elementalist seems to be getting a lot of love. Like
What?
The top, I looked up before the podcast to look at the trade softcore like percentages, and 1 and 2 I think are still Necro and Assassin, but down there in third place is Elementalist, all the way from the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah.
I thought Assassin was dead. I was sure after reading Reddit.
Nope.
Definitely
not.
Who's at the bottom? Berserker? No, I'm looking at hardcore. One sec. Juggernaut is at the bottom.
I mean, that's fair. Jug really didn't get anything exciting.
Jug is the most boring ascendancy in any like hardcore soft. It doesn't matter where you are.
It's boring.
Some people love Jug though.
People saying that.
They'll be Devo if they change it too much. Those 3 people.
No. But has no one got like any cool projects? Like nothing.
I mean, there's all the Ignite stuff you can do on Elementalist that's really cool with conversion. And then the biggest thing on Elementalist, I think, like is the Ellie to Chaos, or Fist to Ellie to Chaos, because you can use Chaos damage that you've converted away as part of the Ignite, so you get this like wall multiplier from a Serious Promise that's really crazy. I mean, I know Quinn actually did make a build around it. It's kind of funny because I sit there and I talk, oh, Ice Crash. Oh, that's like, that can scale really well. And as I'm talking, it's like, oh, Nooger, have you heard about Quinn? He's playing that. Wait, what? I was like, oh, that was my cool idea. He had it as well. Like, oh, come on.
Speaking about cool Elementalist ideas, I know Raiz saw that. Did anyone else see my slight out-of-body experience video that I posted right before League start?
Bro, you should not feel bad about that. I've had people arguing with me day and night going, penance this, penance that, Ignite build, my build does this. And every time I call their build trash, they're like, no, look at my POB. And I'm like, dude, I can guarantee that you're going to be showing me the fucking total damage done and not the DPS, and your build's trash. It's like, no. And then I look at it, it's fucking every time, dude. It's happened like 8 times in a row now, and I don't look at people's POBs anymore.
The thing which is so funny about that is I've played so many Ignite builds, and I've done the exact same thing where I've been like, you're stupid, you're looking at the wrong number. The thing which was fun about that, so right before League start, I had to have some boring pursuit stuff. I won't go into the details, but I hadn't slept for like 4 days. Chat, I had cables like all in my body and stuff, and I was doing written Patreon reviews because I couldn't record videos. And one of my regulars sent me this Ignite build, and he was crazy hyped because he saw the big number. He saw like 8 million total Ignite damage, not his like actual Ignite per second damage. And I'm like out of it, and I'm like, wow, this looks really good. But I'm like, I must be looking at something wrong. So I sent it to my friend who's like a real like big boy hardcore racer guy. And he's like, wow, that looks legit. And I'm like, wait, this is legit? He's like, yeah, that's totally legit, Tarke. I'm like, holy, like, this is really good. And this guy like really knows his stuff. So I'm like, if I think, like, I saw it and thought I must be missing something. But this guy's saying that, no, it's all legit. This must be good. So we're talking about like how crazy these like divine iron numbers are. And then I'm like, I have to tell people about this because this is such a good League start. So I'm like, but do I record a video with all this like cables? And I'm like, oh, screw it, who cares, right? So I record a video. I've got the like stuff up my nose and everything. And even in the video, I'm like, I don't think this is right, but if this is right, this is like the best thing ever. And then literally the first comment is, Tarke, you're reading the wrong line. And I'm like, I'm reading the wrong line of text in Path of Building. So I retitled the video to like why literacy matters or something. But what made it even worse is because when I found out what I did, I found it really funny. So I was like, it's funny, I'll keep it up there. But someone then posted it to Reddit. And because they posted it to Reddit like immediately, it still had like the original title of like, what is Elementalist broken or something. So I left a comment like, I made a mistake. I've edited the description and the title. I've left the video up because I think it's funny how big of a mistake I made because I literally read the long line of text. But then, like, some people are like, no, this is legit, Tarke. This is really good damage. Then other people are like, this is the problem with Tarke. He's always trying to misinform the PoE player base. It's like, no, I just, like... it's like,
bro, you should watch, because I saw all of this unfold, like, from start to finish, and I was streaming. You should watch the VOD of that. The amount of fucking people arguing with me when I'm like, I looked at it and instantly I'm like, oh, okay, he's high. Like he just doesn't, he just did not compute like what happened. And people were like, no, Raiz, you're wrong. And they were defending you so fucking much. It was insane. People were arguing with it. It was just like, dude, what the? You should really watch the
I'll have
chat
to check it
from
out.
that
I'll have
VOD.
to check it out.
It was just like,
That is one thing I always find really funny is like every streamer has had this. It's like when you make a mistake, you realize you've made a mistake, but then like people will be white knighting you, and you're like, no, I'm wrong, dude. Like this is wrong. And like, no, Tarke, you're definitely right here. This is definitely like, no, I made this mistake. No, I'm taking this to the grave. But yeah, Elementalist does look pretty good for Ignite. But yeah, I now just think of that whenever I think of Ignite builds, which is quite funny. I want to try and make a Scorch, like just a pure Scorching Ray build with the change of the head. I think it could be decent.
I actually think you can get good damage on that build.
Yeah.
Like all the fire damage over time stuff can scale really nicely. Flame Wall and Scorching and everything.
Yeah.
I want to make a Impending Doom Decay build. That's pretty cool. Impending Doom got a pretty big buff, and you can get some pretty big multipliers for Decay now. It's pretty much what I wanted to do with the... What's that skill that places the squares on the ground? That thing.
Runebind?
Stormbind.
Yeah. Was it Stormbind?
Yeah,
Stormbind, yeah. Yeah, but then they changed the wording when they released it. It was supposed to be 450 multi, but then they changed it. Sad. This is pretty much the same, though, I think.
I want to do Hydrosphere as well, though. That's like the thing I really want to do.
400.
Yeah, I want to do that, but I don't know how I do that without just copying Garatha's build. Maybe I just need to just copy Garatha's son up, I guess.
Copy it. Try it. Come up with
Do the
something else.
Spectral Throw. The Spectral Throw, I think, is going to be pretty good. People, I think, are really underestimating it.
Shield
But
throw,
then...
I mean?
Yeah, Spectral Shield Throw, yeah. A lot of people have like a problem with the targeting. I don't know. It wasn't an issue for me, but
I hate it as well.
Oh, this was actually something I wanted to ask you, Nuggy.
Yeah.
Because you played a lot of Hex Blast last league. I've seen some like pretty cool Hex Blast stuff now. What do you think of that? Because obviously you've played it.
I haven't seen anything now, but I can tell you that it was very close to being an actual like legit build. It was just missing that last piece, I felt. But I mean, we have better crafting now. There's like it's easy to get to the point where you want it. And then the number it got buffed by a lot. A lot. So I mean, I can totally see it being super legit.
I can't remember because you played it as well. How did you build it, Ziggy?
I went Ignite, which did a lot to make the like smoothness of gameplay really good on it.
Yes,
because a lot of people who played it and did like the cold stuff really hated it and hated the gameplay. But Ignite was really nice. I quite liked it. I felt like it was a pretty fine build. It wasn't like super OP or anything, but what Nugi says, like it was close to being a pretty legit build. It was like a fine league starter for me, that league. So now with the buff, it's going to be surely at least good.
I don't have a particular build in mind, but there's been a lot of changes to Scion that actually look really good. Like a lot of the sub-ascendancy options are quite worth picking up now. Scion Trapper in particular actually looks really good, or Mines. I think it's the best option for Toxic Rain Mines now, with the changes to Nature and the buff to Scion.
I think it's Pathfinder, isn't it?
Why?
Pathfinder for Toxic Rain Mines?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it working. You get throw speed only from the tree. I feel like you'd be missing a lot of throw speed.
Pathfinder's trash.
I could see it working. I mean, you have some pretty decent scalers, but
actually, I agree with you. I just can I make a point about the Pathfinder?
Go on.
Whoever came up with the idea that the 6% recover 6% life on click on a flask was a good idea, I don't know. I need to like talk some senses in this guy, because it encourages everything that is wrong with flasks right now.
True.
Because the thing is, like, when you think of it from a min-max perspective, and you're like, okay, I can probably like generate five flasks I can click per second non-stop permanently, right? You're basically telling someone you need to like fucking click 5 minutes per second non-stop to get good. Like you literally 30 seconds per like 30 recovery per second. It's a lot. It's insane, right? It's like almost Volpack leech.
Yeah.
But like think about what it encourages. It's
like that. It's like the Diablo 3 build. What was it? Like critical mass or something, where you were just like constantly spamming with the wizard. Quinvira's help. What was it?
I'm infuriated just by thinking about how you should play it. It's like I can't like. I don't know if there's a cooldown or something on it. Maybe, but
Okay.
Or just have some recovery that's conditional on having used a flask recently. You know?
How about this, Nuggy? This might sell it on you. Get one of those like Guitar Hero things and just plug that in, and that way you can just like play some Dragon Force or something and be like.
Or like you could ride a bicycle, and it will have like if you ride it at the right speed, you would like literally be pressing at the right, so you could like get some exercise while playing. And
That'd be good.
Click at the right.
Oh, I have a legit project. So if you're one of those people, I actually figured out the reason for why totems are so fucked on Hierophant and why they changed it.
Go.
It's a simple explanation. Searing Bond, baby. You don't want to be placing two of them. You only want to be placing one. And now with the massive buffs, it's a real build. I can promise that. Maybe.
Oh.
Biggest multiplier, dude. Fixed.
Did it gain like 40% damage or something?
It's the biggest. It's like 2.6k base degen. It's like 50% higher than Flame Wall. It's crazy.
There's only one skill that's been buffed, like in the history of Piri, or something like that. It's so that I don't remember. There was like a skill that got buffed by like twice the amount at some point.
Was that the Orb of Storms? Possibly. It used to have negligible damage.
It might have been Searing Bond. There was like a Searing Bond meta.
I think it was Searing Bond as well.
Yeah. There was a Searing Bond meta where people were... There was racing where people would play until level 90, which was like basically what now is like level 95, 96 maybe even. People would play until level 90 with Searing Bond with no passives added on their skill tree. And it was like... that was like a form of racing. Like Uber Elite was like blasting with that, and everybody was playing with the green little totem. Etup got rank 1 with Searing Bond to 100. Took him like 3 weeks. It was a weird meta. Not gonna lie.
I was planning on trying Searing Bond on the Scorcher Grey build if I tried it. Yeah, maybe.
Did you try it or?
I have like a POB with numbers in it. I haven't played it yet, but it's like. If I ever get to return to streaming again, maybe that'd be my debut stream build. Searing Bond.
I'll fucking try it right now. I'm making a build. I gotta be the first, dude.
And if I make it first,
you know what you could do, Ziggy? You and Amy, you could both Searing Bong, and that way you could just have lines for days.
I wonder if it stacks if it's from different players. It probably doesn't.
I think it just picks the highest one. Actually, I don't know.
No, it's only one.
Yeah, it's just one.
It doesn't stack.
So good.
You could race who gets to drop it first.
With people playing Righteous Fire and it didn't stack. You'd just be standing there doing nothing.
Well, they do chain with the Searing Bonds from other players, though. I'm pretty sure.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think so.
How does it work with Blink Mirror Arrow? Can you like blink? Do they link to the blinks?
No.
Oh.
What? No.
That'd be cool.
Yo,
so Blink Mirror is a more legit build now. On the topic of that, because it got like 47% increased cooldown recovery that isn't tied to the Deadeye Ascendancy anymore. So now you can do like Guardian or Necro Blink Mirror Arrow, which is already a thing before. It's just even better now. It's very gear dependent. It is not a budget build, but if you can get like a really nice bow and I think you need the Devouring Diadem and then the Sakawal chest piece as well to get all the auras together and stuff. But if you do that, you can get like 1 million damage per clone at the top end and summon like 12 or 13 clones when you have them all out.
You also need a synthesized Explodey bow. Blink Mirror Arrow is one of the best worst build in the game and has been for years. Like, it's honestly been sleeper for so long. It just requires so much gear, and it's like every single patch something will happen which makes that build better, and every patch I'm like, that'd be great, I'd play that if I was in Trade League and had like 100 exalts just lying around. It's the kind of thing that if MP ever tried it, he would like love that build.
Maybe. It has a cap on how quickly it can go, is I think the problem with it. Though I guess if you do get a synth explodey bow, then that cap kind of goes away. The reason why it's strong, for anyone who's not familiar with the skills, is the blink and mirror arrow clones inherit your bow and quiver, which means that if you have a really, really thick bow with like, there's a few ways you can do it. You can go fizz if you want to and scale with fizz gain as extra and conversion, or you can do a bunch of flat alley stacking with wrath and anger auras. So if you do the flat alley stacking route, you have a bow with really nice crit and like tons of percent damage and minion damage, minion double damage, and pen. And if you want a synth explodey implicit on top, they will get tons of damage and also cause enemies to explode, because technically they're using a bow that causes enemies to explode on kill. So that works. And because technically the explosion is damage caused by a minion, that means percent minion damage scales it. So it hits really fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It used to be the hardest hitting thing in the game, except not for the bow usage. Back in the minion instability days,
Yes.
you could hold them up and they were dealing like 160 billion damage per hit.
The wonkiest use that I've seen of that was using. This is basically going as far down the rabbit hole of this build as you can. Is you use a bow that has like high dot multi and minion damage, and you put them into a replica Forbidden Shaco with a level 35 Infernal Legion, and you scale the dot from the level 35 Infernal Legion, which has a base dot of like 3-point-something K. And you can give them a dot multi quiver with fire dot multi and a dot multi bow with percent minion damage on it. It doesn't do that much damage, but it's like the most hipster build you can play.
I was shocked that you weren't league starting Frostbomb, Octavian. I remember your Frostbomb build from back in the day. Does like all the numbers now.
Build. It's a fun mapping build, but the single target is, well, it was ass. Maybe with the greater.
Did you see the numbers they gave it? That was that. I think that was one of the most surprising changes from the patch notes. So like Frostbomb now just does all the damages.
I wanted to do a build doing like BV Fizz to Cold conversion with some sort of maybe Conk effect helmet with Frostbomb image in it, just to burst enemies a little harder. And then you drop that, and you drop a Vol BV, and you drop your Frostbomb, and you have all these big chunks happening all very rapidly.
Actually, that was one final thing I want to ask you before we finish up. Did anyone have any cool Trinity plans? Because Trinity seems so broken, but like not many people are using it.
It's just a very good support that works in a lot more builds than people think, because a lot of people are still on the idea that you have to hit with 3 different elements. You only have to hit with 2 different elements, and it's much easier to get working than you think. I'm literally just using it on lightning arrow because I'm doing lightning and cold damage, and there's enough variance on lightning damage that I just shoot into a pack and it fully stacks it. So
isn't it like a 70% multiplier as a base or something?
50% and 20% penetration.
Yeah,
As a level
crazy.
So good.
One of the really interesting uses I saw for it was doing a explosive arrow build where the hits from the arrows had like
lightning.
cold damage on them, and the explosion is fire.
Yeah, I saw that. That looked really cool. It's also really good for
that's what you always do.
Yeah, but it just takes that to like the next level. But just stuff like self-cast Frostbolt Ice Nova, like you convert one of them with Cold to Fire, like they convert the Frostbolt, so that way you get the fire and you get the cold. Yeah.
There's a lot of use cases for it. I think it'll just take a while before people figure out like the most useful setups and start building meta builds around them. It's just not. It's not easy to incorporate when you're just starting out in a new league and you want to like push ladder, when you have to like compete with all the other skills that, since everything seemed to be so pretty much the same meta that we just left, people weren't really too keen on exploring, because it's like, oh, I can either do any of these builds that I know for a fact 100% will work and be strong, or I can take a chance on this thing where I have to like kind of theory craft a new strategy here and interact with multiple things, and it's going to be maybe a wash, and I don't know if I want to do that when there's so many other interesting things happening.
That's fair.
I think over time we'll just see some really good Trinity builds.
Well, in that case, unless anyone has any other build stuff they want to talk about, I'd say we should wrap up. No? Well, thank you everyone for hanging out. And we will see you all again in a couple of weeks when hopefully we've at least either done or at least wiped a lot the Maven boss fight, and we can talk about Maven herself.
Sick.
Right. See ya.
Bye.
That was good. I think we did well.
Mm.
Sorry for my stuffy nose. You might have heard me getting a bit nasally towards the end.
Forgiven.
I'm going to bed.
I was
Good
worried about
night.
you, Raiz. I was...
Raiz.
Tarke put me to sleep
Yeah.
again.